Get some help, Josh Parisian. Get some help. What is up, everybody? Welcome to Pub Sports Radio and welcome to Stat Diggers. We have UFC 281, Israel Adesanya going against Alex Pereira. I cannot wait for this card, Weezy. We have a 14-fight card. I'm looking forward to 13 out of the 14 fights, and it's just such a relief, man. I mean, we had to deal with some absolute crap the last 2 weeks. I mean, these last 2 weeks, they've been just crap cards, honestly. I mean, they haven't been great from a name value standpoint. I will say they're playing out fun, but a lot of wildness happening. I mean, this card is just phenomenal from top to bottom. Looking forward to, like I said, pretty much every single matchup on the card. I think there's some interesting betting opportunities on this card as well. But as a fan, I'm really looking forward to this card. So, Weezy, any initial thoughts on this card for you?
Yeah, it's the same way for me because as I've been breaking down these fights, getting ready for the show, I'm finding a lot of fights where I see paths to victory for both fighters, and I'm not necessarily inclined to bet on it, but I'm absolutely inclined to want to tune in and see how these fights shake out. Nega-Mariano versus Ulberg, is Nega-Mariano's pressure in that Easter Island head of his going to be able to absorb enough punishment to be able to break Ulberg late in the fight, because Ulberg is the far superior striker. And then you got Arce and Jackson. I mean, a couple of really talented 135-pounders. Trezano, Choi. And then it just goes on from there. I mean, Ryan Spann versus Reyes. I mean, we haven't seen Dominic Reyes in forever, and he's on an undercard now after coming off of like title fights, and a fight against the current champion. Aaron Blanchfield is back. Matt Frivola against the king of the potatoes, Atman Azaitar. Dude, it's such a great card. Didn't even mention any of the pay-per-view fights. Can't wait to get into it, man. This is fantastic stuff.
Yeah, I agree with Large Connor here. Get some help, Ramona Pascual. Get some help. Flying knee to the liver. Tamires Vidal. I'll tell you right now, I watched all the tape, unfortunately, on Tamires Vidal. I saw none of that. So that was a big surprise. So, yeah, get some help, Ramona Pascual, and anybody that bet on that fight, get some help. Get some help. But, yeah, Weezy, we'll talk about last night a little bit. I know you didn't have a ton of action, but how'd you do last night?
So I got the old reverse sweep, Brady, but there were only 2 bets because I had I hated last week's card from a gambling perspective. I was down 1.5 units. I only had 0.5 units going into weigh-ins, and then I actually bet 1 unit on Mark Madsen at plus 200 when I saw Grant Dawson on the scale. And man, Dawson got dropped right at the beginning of that fight. I was like, holy shit, Mark's gonna cover this right away. And then Grant Dawson did what Grant Dawson does, man. That guy is such a phenomenal grappler. And once that guy gets to your back, he either stays there for the rest of the round or he submits you, and there's no other outcome. So congratulations on a great performance by Grant Dawson, beating the undefeated Olympian in Mark Madsen. And then I had a half unit on Derek Minner by first round sub. And, that was clearly a situation where Minner was injured before the fight. That information became available to certain people. Certain people used that inside information to bet Shailan's money line from minus 180 up to about minus 435 in a couple of spots before it finally settled back to minus 350 or something like that. But yeah, Minner goes in with an undisclosed injury. That information becomes public to certain bettors, and they profit from it. I don't know what to say, because like if I were to get that information myself, Brady, I'd fucking certainly act on it, because, there are so many situations where we are on the wrong side of having inside information, and it sucks when it happens to you. But at the same time, if you're gonna have that information and act on it, it's a great thing. And congratulations to all the Shailan inside the distance bettors, to all the under 2.5 bettors, to all the people who knew for a fact that Derek Minner was hurt and was going to get finished in the first round of that fight. So don't know really what to say about it. But, I think this is why Dana White has told coaches and fighters that they can't bet on themselves because of, for fear of, this is kind of a black eye to the integrity of the betting markets. And that's a very important thing. If you're going to be serious about gambling on a sport, you have to have some kind of, at least of an illusion that there aren't fixed fights or that there isn't readily available information only to a select few that they get to act on while the rest of us are kind of left on the sidelines. So I was wondering, what your take is on that fight, Brady.
Yeah, I mean, I did a quick video on my channel about it. I mean, it's just a sketchy situation. Like, I was looking at the odds, and Shalian was like minus 430, like you said. I'm like, okay, he's injured. And typically when you see these huge line movements, that means the fight's probably going to get canceled. And I knew something was up. And we saw, like, in the first 10 seconds, I mean, the minute went into that fight hurt. So it kind of sucks, man. Inside info being released could get into a little bit of narrative, but just it's not good, man. Same thing happened with TJ Dillashaw. Dillashaw went in there with an injury. The only thing that was different was the line didn't move on Dillashaw. That information did not get released, whereas this time that information did get released, and we saw Shalian just balloon to like minus 410. So I knew right then and there my Minner first round sub prop was not cashing, but I was kind of
mine too.
I was pretty happy with how I played it last night and these last 2 weeks. I mean, I thought these last 2 weeks were very sketchy, so I kept it short and sweet. I think I had 5.5 units on the line last week and then 6.5 the week prior. But my night pretty much came down to Mario Batista, but shout out to you, Weezy. He was your ass shaving of the week. And I mean, it stuck out to me. Like last week, I looked into the fight. I'm like, man, I saw that Benito Lopez was a realtor, and I was like, I got a max bet Mario Batista. I didn't get to the max bet, but I did put like 2.5 units on him at minus 225, beat a lot of line movement. If I would have known he would have came into the fight with that shit haircut, Weezy, it would have been a max bet, because I looked at his Instagram and he had that black hair, nice hair. And then he comes in on fight night with that shit haircut, half black, half blonde. If I would have knew that, it would have been a max bet. But after I did see him at the weigh-ins, I did add on to that fight doesn't go to decision for a half a unit. My losses were the Minner scorecards equals no action, plus 150, half a unit. That was done before the fight even started. The Minner first round sub, plus 950, which was a must bet. That was done before the fight even started. But I did hit the under 2.5. No, I hit the under 2.5 rounds, which I got that at minus 125. And then I also lost on the Maverick inside the distance, or the fight doesn't go to decision, which, man, a lot of opportunities there. But shout out to Shanna Young. She's very tough. But yeah, overall up 0.44 units on a sketchy card. I'll take. I mean, I'll tell you what, these last 2 weeks, 3 weeks, I mean, robberies, injuries, the judge. I mean, it's been wild. So hopefully it settles down a little bit. But this sport is already so hard to bet on. When you add on in all these extras, I mean, the judges, the reffing, I mean, it's one of the hardest sports to bet on, Weezy.
It really is. And you can get on the right side of it too sometimes. Just, it's a lot of it can be luck, I was on that Jacoby decision only prop last week. I mean, you're just like, come on, really? But I remember calling out on my show Just the Tip that I like Jacoby to land more significant strikes at minus 135. What a stud bet that would have been. Right. I wish we could track that kind of shit, because I was going to bet it, and they're like, dude, we can't track that. I'm like, oh, come on, because that would have been a sure thing. But this is such a great card to go forward on. We got big sample sizes for all of these fighters. If we have reads going one way or another, it's something that we can put a little bit of money behind, because it's not somebody that's just showing up from Brazil 2 days before the fight and all the tape is gritty and old and, like Tamara's Vidal. I mean, she could be great, but we've only seen like one fight of hers that was in any reputable organization. There was one fight where they fought in a fucking phone booth. Her and Aylin Perez were in a goddamn phone booth.
That is true.
I mean, it was crazy. So, yeah, I can't wait to talk about these fights.
Yeah, I'm right there with you. So before we get into it, guys, if you guys can please leave a like on the video, subscribe here to Pub Sports Radio. Do appreciate all the support week in and week out. I do want to shout out the chat as always. Before we get started, we got Bob in the chat. We got Andy Mush. We got the Couch War. We got Victor. We got Go Flamingo. We got Kiwi in the chat. We got Addicted to Combat. We have Mushroom. We got Angelo. We got Tim. We got Tajik Bey, the GOAT. We got Glenn in the chat as well. We got Preston in the chat. What is up, Preston? We got Justin. We got Large Connor. We got Rafael Rodriguez. We have, who else we got? We got Small World Filters. And I think I got pretty much about everybody. We got Viral Video and Zach. Appreciate you all hanging out. Leave a like. But I say we get into it, Weezy. All right. We will start with the first fight on the card, and we have a good one. We have Carlos Ulberg going against Nikolai Nega-Mariano. We have Carlos Ulberg, 31 years old, 6'4", with a 77-inch reach. Nega-Mariano, 28 years old, 6 foot with a 78-inch reach. Ulberg, 3 years older. Ulberg with a 4-inch height advantage, and he's going to be at a 1-inch reach disadvantage. Carlos Ulberg is 4-1 in his last 5 fights. He got a knockout win on the Contender Series against Bruno Oliveira in the first round. Had a knockout loss against Kennedy Nzechukwu. In the second round, he had a decision win over Fabio Charant, and then he had a knockout win in the very first round over Tafon and Chukwu. Very good performance there. Nikolai Nega-Mariano, he has 4-1 in his last 5 fights. He had that decision loss against Saperbek Safarov like years ago. He took a massive layoff. He came back and he beat Alexa Kamor. Very close fight, split decision win. Knocked out Ike Villanueva. Split decision win over Kennedy Nzechukwu. Very close fight there. And then he had a knockout win over Ior Pitorio. This is a fight where if Ulberg can stuff takedowns here, I think it's Ulberg all day, and it's not even close. Nega-Mariano has the worst striking defense I've ever seen in my life. It's worse, probably worse than Priscilla Ketchup-Beating, and that's saying a ton. Nega-Mariano, I mean, on paper, it's 39%. This guy is the definition of eating punches with his face, but he can do it. This guy, his chin is unbelievable. The guy's never been knocked down. I don't think he's ever going to get knocked down. The guy has a brick forehead. So yes, he's super hittable, but he can eat these shots. I mean, this guy is a dog. This guy is tough as nails. You need a baseball bat to knock out Nikolai Nega-Mariano, but he's super hittable. I mean, on the feet, for me, it's not even close. I think it's Ulberg all day. It's just Nega-Mariano, to win this fight, he's going to have to push Ulberg against the cage. He's going to have to take him down. And I went and watched as much tape as I could on Ulberg, and I just don't see him stuffing a lot of takedowns. I don't see, much evidence of how good or how bad his takedown defense is. Of course, he does train at City Kickboxing. He does train with Adesanya. Adesanya's takedown defense is elite. And even like Blood Diamond, his takedown defense ain't bad. So, I think Ulberg should have the takedown defense to keep it standing. I don't think Nega-Mariano is the best wrestler in the world. And if Ulberg keeps us at range for the majority of the fight, I mean, Ulberg's going to just pick him apart. I mean, it's going to be easy. We saw Nzechukwu just landing on this guy. I mean, Nzechukwu outlanded him by a ton in the fight. So I do like Ulberg here, but I would like to know how good his takedown defense is. And you can never count on a guy like Nega-Mariano because, like I said, he's a dog. He's a guy that is super tough. When we're talking toughness, that's in favor of Nega-Mariano all day. It's just from a pure skill standpoint on the feet. It's Ulberg all day for me. So I'm kind of tempted on the Ulberg side, but I think if Nega-Mariano comes in here with a good game plan, he could make this competitive. Weezy, really curious to your thoughts on the first fight of the night.
Yeah, this is a great one. But if while I'm talking, you could call YouTube support Tajik Bey, the GOAT. His donate button is stuck again. This happens to this poor guy. He tries to give us $4.99, and the thing sticks, and it just keeps going. Look at this. We just can't. He can't. Somebody get to YouTube support while I'm talking about this fight and help Tajik Bey out. Thank you so much, Tajik Bey, for the donations, my man. But yeah, the poor guy's donate button, it just gets stuck.
I mean, look at these. So, let's count them. 1,
yeah,
2,
yeah,
3,
wow,
4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. Oh my, Tajik, are you okay? Are you okay?
Yeah, dude. I mean, the thing keeps sticking. I don't know what happens to his computer, but I mean, somebody help this guy out. Otherwise, this keeps going on all the show. He broke the poor guy. So, yeah. Wow. But much love to Tajik Bey as usual.
Yeah, I think Tajik hit like 20K last night. So shout out to Tajik Bey. Give him back to the community, and that's why he's the GOAT. 13. I'm not the best at math. 13 times 5.
65.
65.
Yeah.
There you go. Shout out to Tajik Bey. And I did miss a donor earlier as well. It got kind of forgotten. But yeah, Mo, shout out to Mo as well. Saying he hit his last 3-leg with Lamebush Maverick Tagir. Thanks to you guys. Now I have Weili, Dustin, Poyes. What do you guys think about this one? For me, I like Weili a lot. I like Dustin a lot, but I am on the other side of the Hooker fight. Was any thoughts on that three-legger?
Yeah, I mean, fucking Weili looked incredible the last time out. Dustin's a favorite against Chandler, but Chandler's no joke. And, I mean, I think that Hooker is going to look a lot better here. This is a much different fight than the Arnold Allen fight. And he's taking it back up at 155, which is the class that he should be at. Not entirely in love with it, but you got three favorites there that are darlings this week. So good luck to you. But yeah, so for this, the measurables advantage I got going to Nega-Mariano here. 3 years younger and a 1-inch reach advantage, but Ulberg's much taller. The experience advantage, it also goes to Nega-Mariano with 8 more fights, 50 more minutes in the pro cage, 2 more years as a pro mixed martial artist. Nikolai also has the UFC experience advantage with 1 more fight and 28 more minutes in the UFC cage. Finish stats and durability advantage goes to Nega-Mariano. Nikolai has the better finish rate as a pro, 85% to 60% for Ulberg, but it's Ulberg who has the better UFC finish rate as he's finished 2 of his 3 wins, while Nega-Mariano has finished 2 of 4. Nega-Mariano is also more durable. I mean, he's got a head like an Easter Island statue. You pretty much need to shovel the KO this guy. He's never been finished in his pro career, while Ulberg was finished in his only pro loss. Excuse me. And the striking advantage obviously goes to Ulberg. He's got that kickboxing background. He's training at City Kickboxing. He's the much cleaner, more diverse striker. He's got a bananas significant strike differential of positive 4.96 per minute, while Nick's is negative 1.89 per minute. Ulberg also drowns his opponents in volume, throwing 14.3 significant strike attempts per minute, 6.24 more significant strike attempts per minute than his opponents do. He's got the far superior accuracy, 62% to 42%. Knockdowns per 15, 1.13 to 0 for Nega-Mariano. And he's got the better striking defense at 51% to Nega-Mariano at 39%. Ulberg should be the far better minute winner and potentially moment winner in this fight. But Nega-Mariano presents a unique challenge with his excellent conditioning, that forward pressure, and that durability. The dude can absolutely trust his chin. So Carlos needs to be very careful not to gas himself out trying to knock this dude out. Just win the minutes, stay safe, and deal with Nick's pressure, and he easily wins this fight, Brady. But the grappling advantage does go to Nega-Mariano. Ulberg's more of a pure kickboxer. Nick will actually try to clinch you up and take you down. Nick's fights take place in control time positions about 42% of the time, and Nick is winning about 55% of those positions, while Ulberg is clearly more comfortable at kickboxing range, as he usually spends about 7% of his UFC cage time in control time positions. So if Nick can get this fight to the ground, he should be very successful there, and he has the conditioning and the durability to push that pace for the full 3 rounds. The strength of schedule advantage goes to Nega-Mariano as well. His overall strength of schedule numbers are very close, but where Nikolai has the advantage is in the wins. His wins, Alexa Kamer, Ike Villanueva, Kennedy Nchekwu, Ihor Potierer, are better than Ulberg's wins over Nchekwu, Fabio Charant, and Bruno Oliveira on the Contender Series. So Ulberg's 4 inches taller. He's got the better UFC finish rate and has the striking advantage, obviously, while Nikolai is 3 years younger. He's got a 1-inch reach advantage here. He has the overall and the UFC experience advantages, the overall finish rate advantage, the conditioning, and the durability advantages. He's got the grappling advantage too, and he's got the strength of schedule advantage. Nick trusts his chin, he comes forward, and he breaks dudes. Ulberg had that exact same thing happen to him in the Kennedy fight. I think the pressure, durability, and wrestling and grappling advantage that Nick has will make the difference here. I'm picking Nick by 3rd round knockout, dude.
Yeah, the one thing holding me back is that durability. Because if there's a finish in this fight, I mean, nobody's finishing Nega-Mariano unless you have multiple steel baseball bats. You probably need a gun to finish Nega-Mariano. I mean, you're not finishing this guy. And then the grappling scares me as well. I do like Ulberg. I might pull the trigger on him if money keeps coming in on Nega-Mariano, but there's some unknowns in this fight. I think the best move is probably to stay away, but right now we have Olberg opened up minus 200, which is interesting. Currently minus 125. Nega-Mariano opened up plus 170, currently plus 105. So very interesting fight to kick off the card. My goodness, Tajik Bey. Tajik Bey has now set a record for most donations ever. I mean,
ever.
29 donations for one Tajik Bey, and the biggest donation I've ever seen,
yes,
a $99 donation. I mean, should we be worried about Tajik? I mean, what's going on?
Dude, the button is stuck, dude. It's stuck.
The button is stuck.
Do something about it. You're robbing this poor man. I think he meant to give us $5, and that's it. That's all we're worth, Brady.
It's just stuck on $5 all night, just $5. And then it happened again. YouTube support. Somebody call YouTube support and help this man out. 99.
We're trying to do a show, Brady. We can't call them, you know? Somebody help us out here. This guy, the poor thing is stuck. I mean, oh my God.
Oh my gosh. I mean, yeah, to be fair, Tajik did have like a monster night. I saw some pretty insane, like over 20K last night. So
fantastic.
People wonder why he's the GOAT. People are always like, why do you guys say he's the GOAT? Well, I think he's proved it, man.
He supports the community more than anybody. I mean, like, I've got some amazing supporters on my channel too, but I mean, like, Tajik Bey is out there supporting literally everybody that's producing content. So yeah, many thanks. Thanks from Pub Sports Radio to Tajik Bey. This is fantastic.
Yeah, 32 donations. There's another one for Tajik. Oh my gosh. I'm about to count this up at the end of the night. We'll see what he's at, but I've never seen anything like this. So shout out to Tajik Bey. No wonder another one. No wonder he's the GOAT. So we're gonna keep trying to break down these fights. We have the next one in. I think this one's gonna be fun. We have Julio Arce going against Montel Jackson. Julio Arce, 33 years old, 5'7" with a 70-inch reach. Montel Jackson, 30 years old, 5'10" with a 75-inch reach. Montel Jackson, massive tail of tape advantage, 3 years younger, 3-inch height advantage, and a 5-inch reach advantage. The guy is huge for bantamweight. Julio Arce is 3-2 in his last 5 fights, a knockout win against Julian Erosa, a decision loss to Hakeem Dawodu, a knockout win against Andre Yule, a knockout loss to Song Yadong, and then a decision win against Daniel Santos. That was the fight where Daniel Santos came in and made his debut. Was able to bounce back. And I think Daniel Santos is a pretty solid fighter. So that was a good win for me. As far as Montel Jackson, a win against Andre Sukumtop by decision, a win against Felipe Caloric by decision, a decision loss to Brett Johns. He had a knockout win against Jesse Strader, and then a decision win against JP Velismus. So yeah, this is a fight where I think it could be competitive. I just like the physical attributes of Montel Jackson. Man, like I said, this guy's huge for bantamweight. He's going to be younger. He's going to have a height advantage, a reach advantage. And I guess the one thing that stuck out to me, and you're gonna talk about in the stats, Weezy, is the power. Montel Jackson's power is unheard of for the bantamweight division. I mean, 8 UFC fights. The guy's like 10 knockdowns. And I know 4 of them came against JP Velismus, but still, he had a couple against Strader. Had a couple on some other. I mean, the guy hits super hard for the division. Whereas Julio Arce, he has 9 UFC fights. I believe he only has 1 knockdown. So Montel Jackson, he's going to be younger. He's going to be bigger. He's and he hits hard. He hits very hard. So I like Montel Jackson here, but Arce's striking defense is very good at 69%. His takedown defense is phenomenal at 94%. He's stuffed 17 of 18 takedowns. Montel Jackson's wrestling's phenomenal, though. Montel Jackson is completing takedowns at a 68% clip. So although Arce does have that really good takedown defense, it would not shock me in the slightest if Jackson was able to get him down. Because I kind of went through Arce's record, and nobody's really trying to take him down outside of Dan Ige. Dan Ige went for 1 for 13 on his takedown. So I think Jackson could potentially take him down. And I think if somebody gets a takedown, it is on the Jackson side. So I do like Jackson ever so slightly, but the line could be a little wide. We'll talk about it in a little bit, but I like the attributes of Jackson here and also the power. I think the power gets it done here, Weezy. So what are your thoughts on this one?
Yeah, I mean, this guy Jackson has nothing short of freakish measurables advantages over everyone in the division. I mean, he's 3 years younger than Julio. He's got a 3-inch height advantage and a 5-inch reach advantage. but it's a southpaw versus southpaw matchup. But Jackson's got those huge hands, and his grip is pretty much unbreakable in the clinch position. I think they were saying that his hands were as big as Francis Ngannou's. Okay, so when this guy gets you up against the cage, he's really good at getting one of your wrists, putting it behind your back, and then he can take you down from that position. He's really good at whatever wrist he's controlling. He gets it behind your back, and then you're only defending with one arm when you're on the ground. The experience edge, though, goes to Arce. Julio's got 10 more pro fights, 150 more minutes in the pro cage, and he's been a pro for 5 more years than Montel. He also has the UFC experience advantage with 1 more fight and over 15 more minutes in the UFC cage. The finish stats and durability goes to Montel Quick Jackson here, although Arce has the better UFC finish rate at 67% compared to 50% for Jackson. It's Jackson who has the better career finish rate at 64% compared to 56% for Arce. And Jackson has never been finished in 13 pro fights and 2 pro losses, while Arce's been finished in 1 of 3 UFC losses and 2 of 5 pro losses. So I'd have to give that durability edge to Jackson. The striking, I'm going to call the striking even. Both of these guys have fantastic striking metrics at the UFC level. Jackson's got a positive 2.08 significant strike differential, and for Arce, it's positive 1.66. Jackson has 56% accuracy, Arce 37.5%. Montel has a crazy power for 135er with 1.65 knockdowns per 15 minutes compared to 0.14 for Arce. Where Arce shines is with his striking defense, which is just below 70%, while Jackson's is good at 57%. Arce's been dropped 3 times at the UFC level, and Jackson's never been dropped. Jackson clearly has the better metrics, but Arce's faced way better competition, and I think he actually wins the minutes in the stand-up, even though he's at a 5-inch reach disadvantage. If you watch Arce in that Santos fight, it was just a masterful performance. His striking defense has always been excellent, but his lateral movement is great. He uses his size because he's a big bantamweight. He'll look like a small bantamweight on Saturday against Montel Jackson, but I really do believe as long as this is at range and it's a striking match, Arce is going to be 1-for-1 here with Montel. I really believe that they're going to be very, very well matched on the feet. But the grappling goes to Jackson. Jackson's an excellent wrestler. He's getting his takedowns at a 78% clip. It's crazy. 25 of 32. He averages 4.13 takedowns per 15 minutes, and he's out-controlling his opponents at almost a 2-to-1 ratio, despite the fact that his opponents have attempted 25 more takedowns than Montel has. Arce's got excellent takedown defense, though, at 94%, and he's only been taken down once in 9 UFC fights, and he gets controlled by his opponents less than 9% of his UFC cage time. So he does do a great job of keeping fights standing and winning minutes in the stand-up. But if Montel Jackson gets you down, it's going to be very, very difficult to get back up. Like I say, the very big hands, the good wrestling, and he does really well with his control from the top position. The strength of schedule advantage goes to Arce. Julio's fought and beaten a better win-loss ratio and more experienced competition at the UFC level. But Arce's got the overall and UFC experience advantages. He's got the strength of schedule advantage, while Jackson has massive measurables advantages, the better overall finish rate. He's more durable. Jackson also has the power and the grappling advantages here. I think this is a great fight. I have to lean Jackson by decision here, but if Arce keeps this fight standing, I think he can potentially pull out a win on the scorecards just by being defensively sound, by moving, by throwing in combination, and by frustrating Montel Jackson. So it's a really high-level fight. We got to kind of watch to see how Arce looks on the scales because he's had only 3 fights at 135, Brady, and he's missed weight in the most recent one against Daniel Santos. So we want to see what Julio looks like on this scale. But Montel Jackson really does look to be a very special talent. You know, he's got that crazy power. He's got the freakish measurables, and he's got really good wrestling, defensive and offensive in terms of he's very efficient in control time positions for or against, winning about 63% of those control time positions, despite the fact that he's attempted 32 takedowns and his opponents have attempted 57. So I do like Montel Jackson to win this fight, but he just had, I mean, the wins against JP Vlismas, Jesse Strader, Felipe Colares, who got the shit beaten out of him by Chase Hooper, Andre Sukumta, and he couldn't even finish Colares or Sukumta, but he beat the shit out of Colares, though, knocked him down a few times. So Jackson's really only losing to very good competition, but Julio Arce is very good competition. Very interesting fight. I'm picking Jackson, though.
Get some help, JP Bays. Get some help. But man, Weezy, I feel like I'm in a freaking strip club right now, and I am, because my goodness, while you were talking, dude, 26 donations came in.
Oh my God! So it looks like there are 55 $5 donations, which would be $275, Brady, and then one $100 donation, which brings up to $375 from the GOAT.
Yeah, we got some other donos as well. We got Gogo Flamingo with the $10 dono.
Shit.
Appreciate you, Gogo. Saying Magny has tapped 4 times. So Rodriguez sub and Minter sub 1. 169-1. Clintish, maybe, don't know what that means, but I'd do it again. Yeah, I kind of thought, D-Rod could potentially get a sub, but it's actually Magny that sub D-Rod in the 3rd round, which was a wild. And then, Minter round sub 1 is always a must bet. So appreciate you, Gogo Flamingo, for the dono. And then we got Low T City Ortega jumping in at the strip club here, the Stat Digger strip club, saying, doing my best Tajik impression. Appreciate you, Low T City Ortega. And we got Tajik Bey with another one.
My word.
Man, there have been 57 donations tonight. I'm at a loss for words, man.
I'm at a loss for words too, but not about how awesome this card is and not about how awesome our audience is here every week on Stat Diggers. We appreciate each and every one of you guys for tuning in. It means so much to us.
Heck yeah. I mean, if you guys weren't here, it would just be me and Weezy talking, which would still be fun, but it's more fun with you guys here.
It's way more fun with them here.
Oh, yeah. All right. Let's move on to this next fight. Another pretty interesting fight. We got Sungwoo Choi going against Mike Trizano. Trizano, 30 years old, 5'11" with a 71-inch reach. Sungwoo Choi, 30 years old, 6 foot with a 74-inch reach. Same age there. Sungwoo Choi, a 1-inch height advantage and a 3-inch reach advantage. Mike Trizano, 2-3 in his last 5 fights. A decision win against Luis Pena. A submission loss to Grant Dawson. A decision win to Ludovic Klein. A decision loss to Akeem Dawadu, and then a knockout loss to Lucas Almeida. As far as Sungwoo Choi, he's 3-2 in his last 5 fights. A decision win against Suman Mokhtarian, a decision win against Yusuf Zalal, a knockout win against Julian Erosa, a submission loss to Alex Caceres, and a decision loss to Josh Culibao. Honestly, I was a little bit surprised in Sungwoo Choi's last fight. I thought that he would get the fight that he wants, and that's a fight that does play out on the feet. I will say, I think Josh Culibao is super underrated. I think Culibao is very good. And Sungwoo Choi in that fight, he did get dropped twice, but man, did he show a ton of toughness. This guy's a ton of heart. Lost by split decision, but that was a very fun, fight of the night type fight there. And, before that in the UFC, when he's losing, it's because people are taking him down and finishing him on the mat. We saw Alex Caceres take his back and finish him in the 2nd round, which was a weird fight. It was the fight where he did knock down Caceres in the 1st round bad, and then he did that illegal knee, lost the point. 2nd round comes around, Caceres does take his back and sub him. He also got submitted by Gavin Tucker, and then he made his debut against one Mozvar Evloev, which is just unfair. So, this is another matchup where I think Sungwoo Choi is going to get the fight he wants. I do not see Mike Trizano getting takedowns here. Mike Trizano, 6 UFC fights. He only has 2 takedowns. So I think it's going to be a fight that does play out on the feet. And I think it's a winnable fight for Sungwoo Choi. I mean, the biggest thing that sticks out to me, Weezy, and it's the biggest question mark, is what hairstyle is Sungwoo Choi going to come in with? Because in the Juliana Rosa fight, he came in with that beautiful blonde hair. But what I noticed was in the Josh Culibao fight, he went back to that brown hair. So if I see Sungwoo Choi with that blonde hair, I will probably be picking him here. But if not, I mean, I think Trizano is super live. So it's a fight that I think favors the striker and Sungwoo Choi, but Trizano just has a way of making things close. But I will say, I did not like how Trizano looked in his last fight against Almeida. He did knock down Almeida early on, but over the course of the fight, the dude got outlanded like almost 3-1. So should be a winnable fight for Sungwoo Choi. Curious to see if he does come in with some blonde hair. So, Weezy, any thoughts on this one?
Yeah, and what if Trezano comes in with that terrible mullet?
Oh my gosh.
That's another thing. Choi comes in with the beautiful blonde hair. Trezano comes in with the mullet. Max bet Choi, but the measurables advantage is Choi. 1 inch height advantage, 3 inch reach advantage. Both guys are orthodox. Experience advantage also Choi. Brady 3 more pro fights, 30 more minutes in the pro cage. Been a pro for 6 more months. Choi also has a slight UFC experience advantage with 1 more fight. 5 more minutes in the UFC cage. Finish stats and durability, advantage Choi again. The better finish rate is a pro, 60% for Choi, 44% for Trezano, and also at the UFC level, 33% for Choi, 0% for Trezano. And Choi has also been a little more durable, being finished in 50% of his UFC losses, while for Trezano, it's 66%. The striking advantage does go to Choi as well, I think. Both of these guys are effective strikers, definitely. But Choi's stats are a little bit better. Choi has the better significant strike differential at positive 0.32 to negative 0.9 for Trezano. He's also been a little more powerful at 0.54 knockdowns per 15 minutes for Choi to 0.19 for Trezano. And he also outvolumes his opponents as he throws 3.34 more significant strike attempts per minute than his opponents do, while Trezano throws 2 less per minute than his opponents do. So Choi's landing more, he's absorbing less, and he's landing with more power. So I think that's really important, in this fight. The grappling, I kind of have it as even here. Neither one of these guys really looks to grapple first. Sungwoo Choi, 5 takedowns in 7 fights. Trezano, 2 takedowns in 6 fights. Choi, 17% control time for. Trezano, 13.7% control time for. Both these guys give up a lot more control time than they control their opponents. But they're also, getting out takedown attempted. Like Trezano, 3 takedown attempts, but his opponents have 32. But he's still getting out-controlled at a 2-to-1 ratio, which isn't that bad when you're getting out takedown attempted at a 10-to-1 ratio. So it means that he is pretty efficient. He's stopping takedowns at a 72% clip, but I really don't think the grappling is really that important. I think both these guys want a striking battle, and I think they're both going to get it. I don't really think there's any evidence out there to suggest, Brady, that either one of these guys is going to win 2 rounds out of 3 with their grappling here. I'd be very surprised if that happened. And then when you look at the strength of schedule, it's Choi, I think. I gave it to Trezano. He's faced the better win-loss ratioed competition over their UFC careers, while Choi has faced the more experienced opponents. I like Trezano's wins just a little bit better than what I like Choi's, and that's because of the 2.67 ratio in the wins compared to 1.43 for Choi, while Choi's wins are a little more experienced opponents. So Choi's got the measurables advantage. He's got the pro and UFC experience advantages. He's got the finish stats and durability advantages. He's got the striking advantage on the metrics. He's got the strength of schedule advantage. While Trezano has faced the more experienced competition at the UFC level and has the better striking accuracy and better striking defense numbers than Choi. I like Choi to win this fight. I think he hits harder. I think he'll land the more damaging shots. And I also think that the stats say that he's the more likely minute winner in the stand-up exchanges. And I don't have enough evidence to suggest that Trezano can win in the grappling. So I'm going to go with Sungwoo Choi here.
Yeah, I'm going to go with Sungwoo Choi as well. Tajik Bey, if you were wondering, he is still going. 76 donations on the show. I mean, could we get to 100? Can we get to 100 donations? I mean, set a worldwide record. 77 now. Tajik Bey.
My God, I mean, it's unbelievable. Wow.
78.
Tajik Bey, blink twice if you were being held hostage.
Yeah, I mean, something's got to be wrong. The button's stuck. Hopefully Tajik Bey is all right.
Hopefully it's not Buffalo Bill from Silence of the Lambs saying you will hit the donate button again or you get the hose, like he's like down there in a well, it's just, I hope that's not the case. Like that nobody's making a suit out of human skin.
Get some help, Tajik Bey. Get some help. You, Josh Parisian, Ramona Pascual, get some help. Another one from Todd. That's 80 donations on this. It's just wild, man.
Wow.
But as far as this line goes, it's not, it's decent. Sung Woo Choi opened up as a -180 favorite, currently -62. Trezana opened up as a +155 underdog. He's currently +142. Like I said, I feel like Trezano could make it close, but this should really be a matchup that Sung Woo Choi should just go out here and in style on this guy, potentially hurt him, potentially knock him out. But I do like Sung Woo Choi here, especially if he comes in with that beautiful blonde hair.
Yeah, and I think it's a striker versus striker matchup, so there's nothing wrong with taking the plus money on this. I think Choi should win the fight. I think Choi gets the fight that he wants, but I also think that Trezano is going to get the fight that he wants here, and he's a guy who does really well in the striking exchanges as well. I think it's going to be a pretty close fight, leaning Choi, but don't hate the plus money on Trezano at all.
Yep. Let us keep moving on to the next fight here. All right, here we go. We have, oh boy, this is my 1-800 gambler fight of the week. Last year, last fight card last night, we had the 1-800 gambler fight of the year with Ramona Pascual, Tamires Vidal, and it played out just how you'd expect. This is a fight where it's a 1-800 gambler fight for me. It's a pick'em fight as well. It's a fight where, Karolina Kowalkiewicz, 37 years old, Gomez Juarez, 37 years old. Karolina, she's 5'3", Juarez 5'3", and then Juarez is going to have a 1-inch reach advantage. Karolina's 1-4 in her last 5 fights. She has fought some good competition, though. A loss to Watterson, Grasso, Yan Xiaonan. Getting subbed by Penne was not the best look in the world, but she does bounce back and get a win against Felice Herrig. Silvana Gomez-Juarez makes her debut against Lupi, loses by sub against Vanessa right before dropping Vanessa, and then knocks out the very handsome Liang Na. Hopefully we see Liang Na back in the cage. I miss her. But yeah, that was a very impressive knockout there. So it's 1-800 gambler for me, Weezy, because it was just a fight ago where I thought Karolina was going to retire. I thought both, Felice, we were talking about both of them potentially retiring after that fight. Karolina goes out there and she looks good. She looks good for the first time in a while. She looked like ass, prior to that fight. But, and then Felice Herrig retires. So, how much stock do you want to put into that performance? Herrig was off of a layoff and Karolina was able to submit her, but I'm just still not sold on Karolina. And I still wouldn't be shocked if she retired after this fight. Silvana Gomez-Juarez, the thing with her is her takedown defense is atrocious, 37%. A lot of that does have to do with Lupi, but her ground game is pretty bad. She's been submitted a couple times in her career. But on the feet, she hits like a truck. For 115 pounds, it's crazy how much power Silvana Gomez-Juarez has. And what I notice about Karolina Kowalkiewicz is she gets hit a ton. She's absorbing like almost 6 significant strikes per minute. I think it's like 5.59 per minute. So she is going to get hit in this fight. And she's going to get hit very, very hard by Silvana. So I actually kind of lean with Silvana, but how much faith can you have? If Karolina grapples, it's an easy win. It's just, when has she really ever went for takedowns? Only 2 takedowns in 13 UFC fights. She's been in the UFC for almost 10 years. So can we really count on Karolina to grapple here? I can't. I think they are going to strike. And I think that Juarez could potentially knock her out. Juarez's power is no joke there. So we'll talk about the totals in a little bit. But I was kind of thinking under. It opened up at like +190, which would have been nice. It's now like +110, +115. So people are kind of agreeing with there. But I think Juarez is live for the knockout. And if Karolina does grapple, she's very live for the submission. I think this is a fun fight, Weezy, but a fight I just don't really see myself putting money on.
Yeah, me neither, man. And those violence props got smashed. And this is a pretty clear, even though Kowalkiewicz is a striker, she should grapple here. You really should grapple against Silvana Gomez-Juarez. Juarez got a 1-inch reach advantage. All the other measurables are pretty much the same. The experience advantage, obviously, that goes to Kowalkiewicz. 5 more pro fights, 100 more minutes in the pro cage, 10 more fights at the UFC level, 150 more minutes in the UFC cage. The finish stats and durability, advantage Juarez for the finish stats, advantage Kowalkiewicz for the durability. Juarez has the better finish rate as a pro, 82% compared to 31% for Kowalkiewicz. And at the UFC level, it's 100% for Juarez, while it's 17% for Kovacevic. Juarez has been finished in both of her UFC losses and in 3 of 4 pro losses, while Carol has been finished in 3 of 7 and UFC losses. So I have to give Carol the durability advantage here. The striking, I'm going to give Gomez Juarez. She's got a ton of power on the feet, great leg kicks, good boxing. She has 7 career wins by knockout, and she's landed 2 knockdowns at the UFC level in only 21 significant strikes landed. So she's really powerful. I think she's, as long as this fight stays standing, Juarez will be the much more dangerous fighter. The grappling advantage goes to Carolina, obviously. Juarez really has no ground game to speak of. She'll need to keep this fight standing in order to win. She only has 37.5% takedown defense. So if Carol wants to try to get this fight to the ground, the opportunity should be there for her. But we have to note 11 takedown attempts in 13 fights. She's only gotten 2 of them. That's less than 20% takedown accuracy. So it's not really Carolina's game to go out there and get takedowns. Strength of schedule, obviously Kovacevic. She's fought, beaten, and lost to the better win-loss ratio, more experienced competition at the UFC level. Carolina has the pro and UFC experience advantages, the durability advantage, the grappling and strength of schedule advantages here. Juarez has a 1-inch reach advantage. She's the way better finish stats and the striking and power advantages here. If this fight stays standing, I think Juarez pretty much dominates. This could be like a situation like Roundtree versus Jacoby, in that, Jacoby was kind of like the more pitter-patter kickboxer there, while, Roundtree was just kind of swinging for the fences and missing most of the time. But when he did land, it was more impressive. Well, they gave that fight to him on damage. This is a situation where, Silvana could get outlanded 2-1 here and win the fight on damage, because she just lands really dominating, heavy strikes. Carol, like I said, only 2 takedowns in 13 fights. So if I can't count on her to wrestle here, I'm going to have to side with Gomez Juarez. And I want to shout out our guy, Brandon, the MMA Propaholic. He posted the clip on YouTube. The Gisele Pereira fight versus Silvana Gomez Juarez. Dude, if you want to see the worst reffing performance ever, this lady that's reffing this fight lets Gisele Pereira die in the cage. It's like Mario Yamasaki-esque. It was unbelievable. Just Silvana beat 7 shades of shit out of this girl, kicks the fuck out of her leg, drops her 8 to 10 times. And each time she dropped her, the ref would make her get back up. And I mean, I don't know if this Gisele Pereira like pissed off the Brazilian mob and they put her in there with a tough fighter and, just wound up letting her get the shit kicked out of her. But if you want to see what Silvana Gomez Juarez can do on the feet, go watch that Gisele Pereira ass shaving, and you'll get an idea of, what she's capable of when she's landing good leg kicks. She's just going to be a lot more powerful than Carolina here, but they're both 37 years old. I don't see any reason to be, heavily invested in this fight or have an overly strong opinion about it.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, maybe violence. This is a 115-pound fight, so you'd think you'd get a good violence line. And remember the Liang Na, Silvana Gomez Juarez violence? Like we were looking forward to that line for what, like months?
A month at least, dude.
Yes.
Like I think I called you late one night. Like, did you see what fight? And you're like, what are you talking? Na Liang, Silvana Gomez Juarez for all the units. Fight doesn't go to decision. We were waiting for that to open.
And it cashed so beautiful. I mean, unfortunately, Liang Na did get her haircut knocked off, but it cashed. It did cash. And I might go back to violence here. I mean, I know it's a 115-pound fight, but Silvana Gomez Juarez does not hit like a 115-pound fighter. And we did see 2 115-pound fighters get knockouts last night, right? So, I mean, I think it's very possible Gomez Juarez can knock Carolina out. And I also think it's very possible if Carolina does decide to grapple, which I think would be very smart, she could sub Juarez. So I think the violence is probably the way I'd look at it. If anything, I'm not touching a money line. It's about a pick 'em here. -112 Carolina, -108 Gomez Juarez. Violence for me, if anything, but I'm going to see where the fight doesn't go opens up at.
Yeah, and Carolina's only been knocked out once in her career in 20 fights. So she's very durable. And it's not like Juarez is going to be submitting her. Who was the one who knocked her out? It was, oh my God, Jessica Andrade.
Very handsome. Yes.
Yeah, you got that right, man. So that's the only person to ever knock her out. And she's been in there with Nama Yunus, Randa Marcos, Jędrzejczyk, Gedelia, Herrig, Watterson, Grasso. You know, she's been in there with the top of the, you know, the best that there is.
Yeah, for sure. Should be a good fight. This fight is probably my favorite fight on the prelims, Weezy. We have Matt Frivola going against Ottman Azaitar. We have Frivola, 32 years old, 5'9" with a 71-inch reach. Azaitar, 32 years old, 5'8" with a 71-inch reach. We have Matt Frivola with a 1-inch height advantage. Age is the same, reach is the same. Matt Frivola is 3-2 in his last 5 fights, a knockout win against Gennaro Valdez, a knockout loss against Terrence McKinney, a decision loss to Arman Sarukian, a decision win against Luis Pena, a decision win against Jalen Turner. Azaitar is 5-0 in his last 5 fights. He had that knockout win against Packalin in his debut, and then a knockout win against Kama Worthy. This guy is knocking everybody out, as I believe he has a 100% finish rate or pretty close to it. Ottman Azaitar is very, very dangerous, and so is Matt Frivola. I mean, shout out to Matt Frivola in his last fight against Valdez. Like, that was probably one of my favorite fights ever. I forget who was reffing. It had to be like, I don't know, Mark Smith or like Keith Peterson, where
no, it was Beltran.
Oh, it was Beltran, man.
Yeah, I think it was Beltran, dude.
I mean, he almost killed poor Valdez. I mean, knocked him down 4 times. I was like, are you going to stop the fight? I had the under 2.5 in that fight. I'm like, come on, let's stop it. But I guess the big thing here for me, Weezy, is we have not seen Azaitar in a long time. He has not fought in 2 years and 1 month. The last fight did come against Kama Worthy, and he was supposed to fight for Vola. I believe it was Fight Island, but there was that whole potato incident where somebody tried to sneak in the potatoes, which why potatoes out of anything? But nonetheless, it got canceled due to COVID protocols. So we did not get to see the fight then, but it got rebooked here, and we're gonna see it. This comes down to, for me at least, which Matt Frivola shows up. There's 2 versions of this guy. The first one is the shit-eating wild man version of Matt Frivola, who wants to stand and bang until one man falls. And we've seen that in a couple of his fights. We saw that in his last fight against Valdez, where he did get cracked a couple times. He got wobbled a couple times, but was able to come out on the right side of the war in that fight. He went to absolute war against Marco Polo Reyes, of all people, and Polo Reyes knocked him down twice and knocked him out. He went to war with Lando Venata. Venata knocked him down twice. I mean, he goes to war sometimes, and he likes to get into these wars. But in some fights, he does come in here and fight smart. Against Luis Pena, takes him down 4 times, wins a decision. Against Jalen Turner, takes him down 4 times, wins a decision. So is Matt Frivola going to come out here and get into a fight of the night type performance against Azaitar, or is he going to try to fight smart, take Azaitar down to the mat, and exploit this guy's takedown defense? Because I did watch some earlier footage of Ottman Azaitar's, and his takedown defense does not look great. He's getting taken down very easily, but I'm assuming it has improved. He's training with really good guys. I think he's training with like Umar Nurmagomedov and those guys. So I think it's going to be better, but it comes down to, is Frivola going to go out there and stand and bang with Azaitar? And I kind of have a feeling he does. And if he does, his head is going into the 6th row. I mean, Azaitar's power is just ridiculous, and I don't think Frivola has a good chin at all. He was getting hurt by Valdez. He got knocked out by McKinney in 7 seconds. He got dropped twice by Venata, dropped twice by Polo Reyes. Azaitar is going to arguably be the hardest hitter he's fought. I mean, Azaitar's power is legit. So I like Azaitar to win by knockout, but Frivola does have a path to victory, and that is the wrestling route. So it's an interesting fight. My favorite fight in the prelims. Weezy, I cannot wait to hear your thoughts on this one.
Yeah, this is so much fun, man. I mean, I got the measurables pretty much even here. Same reach, same age, similar height. Ottman switches stances and Frivola doesn't, so I like that for Ottman. The experience advantage goes to Frivola. Even though they have the same amount of pro fights, it's Matt who has 50 more minutes in the pro cage, 6 more UFC level fights, 67 more minutes in the pro cage. The finish stats and durability, that goes to Azaitar as well, as he's finished 12 of his 13 wins inside the distance. He's got crazy power in his hands, and he also has a couple of submission wins to his credit as well. Azaitar has the better overall finish rate, 92% for Ottman, 55% for Frivola, and UFC finish rate is also better for Azaitar at 100% to 50% for Frivola. Azaitar has never been finished in his career, but he's never lost. while Frivola has been finished in 2 of 3 UFC losses. The striking advantage got to give to Azaitar. He's put up crazy striking numbers thus far in the UFC. He has the better accuracy at 57% to 41% for Frivola. Knockdowns per 15 minutes, 2.94 for Azaitar, 1.03. Also very good for Frivola. The significant strike differential, 6.67 for Atman Azaitar and negative 0.04 for Frivola. And then the striking defense, 68% for Azaitar, 59.5% for Frivola. Atman throws way more volume, and he's never been dropped, while Frivola has been KO'd twice and dropped 5 times at the UFC level. So clearly, if Frivola wants to do what's smart and take the path of least resistance, he's just not going to stand in front of this dude early. He's got to go out there and grapple. I mean, his last fight, against Valdez was against somebody who didn't have that kind of power. But just before that, we saw him get just absolutely separated from his consciousness by Terrence McKinney. And it's, like you said, Polo Reyes did it too. Venata had him in a whole ton of trouble. And hopefully he's learned from that. Because if you're on that Frivola side and he fucking goes out there like he did in the Valdez and the Polo Reyes fights, you are going to fucking put a sledgehammer through your TV and you are going to be fucking furious, man. So it's really, really very important that Frivola uses the grappling advantage that I have him capped with here, Brady, as this is the path of least resistance. He beat Jalen Turner using a grappling heavy game plan. He beat Luis Pena using a grappling heavy game plan. He should use the same strategy in this fight. Atman has attempted 0 takedowns in 2 fights and has only seen 1 takedown attempt against in 2 fights. So Frivola is going to want to test that takedown defense and get up game here so that he can keep Atman away from where he's most dangerous, and that is at striking distance, throwing those steroid-laden bombs. And the strength of schedule advantage also goes to Frivola. He's fought, beaten, and lost to the better win-loss ratio of more experienced competition. So in summary, Frivola's got the overall and UFC experience advantages. He's got the grappling advantage, the strength of schedule advantage. Atman has the way better steroids. He's got the finish stats. He's got the durability advantage, and he's got the striking and raw power advantages here. There is definitely a path for Frivola, and we will find out what Atman's takedown defense looks like at the UFC level here. If this fight stays standing, Atman's power and Frivola absorbing 5 knockdowns and 2 knockouts in 8 UFC fights are very troubling statistics if you're on the Frivola side. I like the Azaitar finish only prop here, but I think Frivola can win this fight by decision going to the wrestling early and often.
Yeah, and that's why I'm kind of not like jumping on the money line of Azaitar. If I'm going to bet him, I'm probably going to bet him by knockout. Money's been pouring in on Azaitar. It looks like Frivola did open up as a plus 105 dog, but he went down to like minus 150. He was hanging around minus 150 for a couple weeks, and now he's back at minus 112. It's a pick 'em now. Money's been pouring in on Azaitar the last couple days, and I think more money keeps coming in on him. I think but like I said, Frivola does have a path to victory is the only thing that scares me. The over-under is minus 170 to the under 2.5. So the under 2.5 opened, Weezy, at plus 135. Somebody's getting fired.
Yeah, for an Azaitar fight where he's only had 1 fight ever go to decision. So, and he's finished both of his UFC opponents in the very first round. And, after that Fight Island incident, if there's any doubt in anybody's mind that the guy wasn't a cheater before that, who the fuck scales a 5-story building to deliver potatoes? You'd have to have a goddamn screw loose. So, there's that as well. What kind of juice is this dude gonna be on? So if I were Frivola and I was, in his camp and helping him out, I'd be in his ear going, "Hey, Matt, how many steroids you doing? None? Well, then you better fucking take this dude down because he's doing steroids. And if he hits you, you're going down. Because he's very strong. He's got good striking, everything from Atman on the feet looks great. So great stylistic matchup. My favorite fight in the prelims too. And that's saying a lot because this card is so stacked.
Yeah, that is definitely saying a lot. Let us keep moving on, Weezy. We have Andre Petrosky going against Wellington Turman. We have Petrosky, who is 31 years old, 6 foot with a 73-inch reach. Turman, 26 years old, 6 foot with a 72-inch reach. We have Turman 5 years younger, same height, and then a Petrosky with a 1-inch reach advantage. Petrosky is 4-1 in his last 5 fights. He had a knockout win in his debut against Michael Gilmore in the 3rd round. He beat that bum Zhang Hu by submission in the 3rd round, and then he got a submission win against Nick Maximov in the very 1st round. Wellington Turman 3-2 in his last 5 fights. Decision win against Marcus Perez, knockout loss against Andrew Sanchez, knockout loss against Bruno Silva, decision win against Sam Alvey, and a submission win against Misha Serkinov. This is a really tough fight for me, and the line doesn't really indicate that. I mean, Petrosky's a really big favorite, and I don't know if I agree with that. Petrosky, he's looked good, but I mean, who's he looking good against? Michael Gilmore, who's been cut, Zhang Hu, who's been cut, and Nick Maximov, who has been cut. All 3 of those guys are no longer in the UFC, and I'm watching this guy and his cardio. I still have some serious questions about it. I was watching him in the Zhang Hu fight. I mean, the guy was like very tired in the 1st round, and shout out to, Petrosky is able to kind of push through it. But, Zhang Hu was not really providing much resistance because he's kind of a bum, right? I don't think Wellington Turman's amazing, but, he is a legit black belt in BJJ. He's training with some very good guys. Wellington Turman's going to provide some good resistance here. Wellington Turman, an 85% takedown defense. Michael Gilmore does not have that. Zhang Hu does not have that. I think he can provide the takedown defense here. I think on the feet, Petrosky's striking's looked good, but it's looked good against Zhang Hu. I mean, the guy is horrible. I think the striking is probably pretty I think it's a close fight, Weezy. I think it's a very close fight. I've been impressed with Petrosky, but I'm still not completely sold on the cardio. The level of competition scares me, and the line seriously scares me on this one. Weezy, I'm curious to your thoughts on this fight.
Yeah, I mean, let's go through the stats so we can talk about who's got the advantages where, and then after we're done doing that, we can discuss if this line does make any sense here, because the measurables are even. But Turman's 5 years younger here. He's only 26 years old. That's very important to me. Petrosky's got a 1-inch reach advantage. He switches stances, so that's a little bit on his side as well. But I like that Turman being 5 years younger. The experience advantage definitely goes to Wellington Turman here. He's got 14 more professional fights, 114 more minutes in the UFC cage, and over 4 more years as a pro fighter, despite the fact he's 5 years younger than Petrosky. Petrosky's got the finish stats advantage, but Turman's got the durability advantage here. As Petrosky has the better finish rate both as a pro, 100% finisher in his 8 wins is Andre Petrosky, 66% finisher for Turman. And at the UFC level, Turman's finished 33% of his wins, while obviously Petrosky's finished all of his wins. Petrosky's been finished in his only loss, though, and Turman's been finished in only 40% of his professional losses and in 66% of his UFC losses. But since Andre has a 100% finish rate against, and Turman has fought way better competition, I'll have to give Wellington the durability advantage here, especially after Petrosky faked that he got hit with an illegal shot in the Brian Battle fight. You remember when they stopped that fight? And it was like clear as day that there was nothing illegal that happened there. But Petrosky got a timeout, so that worried me about Petrosky's durability. The striking advantage on paper with the metrics that we have here is advantage Petrosky. It's a metrics call that mostly has to do with Petrosky fighting lower level competition. Andre is the better significant strike differential, though, positive 2.02 for him to negative 1.08 for Wellington Turman. The better striking accuracy at 62% to 50% for Turman. The more volume, he throws 2.19 more significant strike attempts per minute, does Petrosky, while Turman's throwing 1.03 less. And the striking defense at 53% for Petrosky is better than Turman's at 42%. That's not good. That being said, if this were a 15-minute striking match, I think it'd be close, but I'm leaning Wellington Turman. I've seen him win all the minutes on the feet against Sam Alvey, who's, known for keeping fights standing and, having a lot of power. I mean, so I think that while this is at striking range, that it's going to be very close. The grappling advantage on paper, once again, goes to Petroski, purely stats-based, but I think they're very well matched here in the grappling. Andre gets more takedowns per 15, 4.1 to 1.98 for Turman. He also attempts more submissions per 15 minutes, 4.1 for Petroski to 0.99 for Turman. And he gets his takedowns at a much better rate, 47% to 20.5% for Turman. And he gets more control time, 60.43% control time for Petroski, 35.69% control time for Turman. And he's allowing less control time than Turman, less than 1% control time allowed for Petroski, while Turman's allowing almost 25% control time. But Turman's showing good takedown defense, though, at 87.5% against 8 attempts. Strength of schedule goes to Turman as well. So Petroski's got that 1-inch reach advantage. He's a switch stance fighter. He's the better finisher, and he has the striking and grappling metrics advantages here. While Turman's 5 years younger, he's got the overall and UFC experience advantages. He's more durable, and he's a BJJ black belt and has the strength of schedule advantage. I think this fight plays out very close on the feet and in the grappling exchanges. I don't think there's any doubt that Petroski's the better wrestler, though. And so Petroski's probably going to be the one choosing where and when this thing does go to the ground. But I think Turman's youth, Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu black belt, his experience, his strength of schedule advantages, and then most likely his conditioning advantage are going to carry him to a decision win here.
Yeah, and I can even see like a late finish for Turman because, like I said, Petroski, these guys aren't providing any resistance, whereas Turman is going to provide resistance. He has that black belt, unlike freaking Michael Gilmore, Zhang Hu. He has that takedown defense, unlike those two. And like I said, I'm seeing Petroski getting super tired really early, but he's able to push through it against these lower level guys. I don't know if it's going to, cut it against Turman here. We saw in the Tough House, right? We saw that he slowed down really bad against Brian Battle because Brian Battle was putting up resistance and he submitted him in the second round, shot in for a sloppy takedown attempt, and Brian Battle subbed him. I mean, Turman, I think that's alive. I mean, Turman just armbar from guard somebody. And
a black belt in Misha Serkinov.
Yeah, like that's impressive. I mean, we don't see that. We do not see that at this weight class. So I mean, I think it's a dog. I think it's a super close fight here, and the line just does not indicate that. One thing that I want to bring up is I think there's some recency bias here. Petroski plus 330 in his last fight against Nick Maximov, 330. And now all of a sudden he's a pretty big favorite here against Wellington Turman. He's minus 200. And then Turman's plus 170. I think this fight is just way, way closer than the line does indicate. And kind of what pushes me over the top, Weezy, and I think it's very important, and I'm surprised you didn't touch on it, is this.
Oh, no. He's got blonde hair? What? No.
Yep.
Come on.
Yep.
What is he doing? He's got a beautiful head of hair. He doesn't need to dye it.
He's trying to be like Sungwoo Choi can pull it off, though.
Yeah, Sungwoo Choi's got like one of the biggest pop stars in Korea as his girlfriend. Sungwoo Choi can do that. Petroski, man, I don't know. Why would he want to go blonde? Doesn't make any sense to me, man. I'm glad because I bet Wellington Turman for 1 unit at plus 187 just because he has faced it. Let's look at the last 4 opponents for these guys, Brady, because this is important. Nick Maximov, that bum Huyazong, Michael Gilmore, and Aaron Jeffrey for Petroski. And he lost to Jeffrey. While Turman's in there with guys like Misha Serkinov, Sam Alvey, Bruno Silva, and Andrew Sanchez. Marcus Perez had 7 UFC fights. He's just got the way better brand of competition here. I like Wellington here. He's just fought the way better brand of competition.
Yeah, and you did beat some line movement as well. It looks like on FanDuel went from plus 186 to plus 176. I mean, I would think money would come in on Wellington, but yeah, I think so. I mean, this line just doesn't make a ton of sense to me.
Yeah, I agree, man. I agree. It's a great fight, though. They're really well matched. It's just with one fighter, you're laying minus 200. The other one, you're laying, you're getting plus 176. I think it's an easy choice on the money line.
No, sir. We got our 83rd donation of the night. It is Low T City Ortega saying, Weezy and Brady, you know what to do with that disgraceful cut.
We know. God damn it. If Benito Lopez had just shown up on Monday with that bullshit haircut, it would have been a max bet on Batista for me. I already put him as the ass shaving of the week. So, yeah, man. That's that. I don't know what he's thinking, dyeing his hair blonde. He's a very handsome kid. The fuck is he fucking around with his hair color for, man? There's no point in doing that.
I don't know. I don't know what some of these guys are thinking, but
I don't know.
But we'll move on. All right. We have the next fight. We have Erin Blanchfield going against Molly McCann. Blanchfield, 23 years old, 5'4" with a 66-inch reach. Molly McCann, 32 years old, 5'4" with a 62-inch reach. Blanchfield, 9 years younger, and Blanchfield going to have a 4-inch reach advantage. Blanchfield is 5-0 in her last 5 fights. She had a knockout win against Victoria Leonardo, a decision win against Brogan Walker, some solid competition outside the UFC, comes into the UFC against Sarah Alpar, beats the living shit out of her, wins a decision against Miranda Maverick, almost finishing her a couple times, and then submits JJ Aldrich in her last fight. Not the best performance, but she was able to get the finish win nonetheless as a pretty big favorite. Molly McCann, 3-2 in her last 5 fights. Decision loss to Tyler Santos, a decision loss to Procopio, a decision win against Ji-Young Kim, the very handsome Ji-Young Kim, a knockout win against Luana Carolina, and then a knockout win against Hannah Goldie. And I'm shocked. I'm very shocked Molly McCann took this fight. Of course, we know that she had that, deal with Barstool. She's starting to gain a lot of hype, her and Patty, the dynamic duo there. I'm shocked she took this fight. She was talking about potentially fighting Antonina Shevchenko. And I think that would have been good for her to go and fight Antonina. But this is just a terrible matchup for Molly McCann. And I go back and I watched that Procopio fight. And Procopio just went out there and just ragdolled Molly McCann for 3 rounds. She took her down like 8 times. And, Tyler Santos did the same thing. We can excuse that. But there is no excuse for getting ragdolled for 3 rounds against Laura Procopio. I mean, I see Blanchfield doing the exact same thing. And I don't think Molly McCann's going to do anything about it. Of course, on the feet, you have to favor Molly McCann. Her striking's very good. Her striking's look much, much better, especially as of late. She's showing power as well. But, Blanchfield is going to get this fight down to the mat whenever she wants. 66% takedown accuracy. JJ Aldrich, she does have a very good takedown defense. Blanchfield kind of struggled to get her down, but, Molly McCann, 46% takedown. Like this is a horrible matchup for Molly McCann. I think it's a mistake to take this fight, and I think Blanchfield goes out there and she pays off her price tag and more. I think she probably 30-26 McCann or even finishes her. Molly McCann has been submitted before by Jillian Robertson. Blanchfield was close to finishing a very good grappler in Maverick. I can see a Blanchfield finish at some point in this fight, or it's a very dominant decision. I think Molly McCann's screwed here, Weezy. Curious to your thoughts on this one.
Yeah, I mean, this, like you said, this is a nightmare stylistic matchup because Molly McCann's a striker. And Erin Blanchfield is a grappler who's got serviceable striking. But Molly McCann does not have UFC level serviceable grappling, right? So Blanchfield's 9 years younger, and she's got a 4-inch reach advantage too. So even while this is on the feet, she could be safe as long as Molly doesn't blow a line that's a foot long and then go out there and wax ass like she did in the Luana Carolina and Hannah Goldie fights in front of her home crowd. She looked about as amped up as I've ever seen any fighter. I remember when she was walking out being like, man, Hannah Goldie's fucked, and the same thing with Luana. She's just an absolute monster if you let her have her fight. But, I mean, when you look at what Erin Blanchfield did to Sarah Alpar, 7 shades of shit she beat out of her. She beat 7 shades of shit out of Miranda Maverick. And then she was losing to Aldrich, straight up losing that fight. And people who had been laying minus 400 on her, minus 5, they were freaking out before she got that high elbow guillotine there. And she put her ass right up against the cage so she couldn't drop to her back. Erin Blanchfield knows how to finish fights. And when she gets them to the ground, she knows how to keep you there and to do a lot of good work with her Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu and ground and pound. Yeah, I mean, if you want to talk about the stats that matter in this fight, how about 27% control time allowed for Molly McCann, 46% takedown defense. And then you look at Erin Blanchfield, she's controlling her opponents over 60% of her 37 minutes in the UFC cage. That's really impressive. 4 takedowns per 15 minutes, 2% control time allowed. She's basically out controlling her opponents at a 30-1 ratio, while Molly McCann gets out controlled at about a 2.5-1 ratio. So clearly, Erin, if she's smart, she's going to have to sit there in a room with Matt Frivola, and they're going to have to look each other in the eyes, and they're going to have to say, we promise to take our opponents down. We promise to take our opponents down. That's what Frivola and Blanchfield need to do. They need to hang out together. They need to talk about how they're going to take their opponents down. They need to talk how they're going to push wrestling-heavy game plans so that they don't make their opponents comfortable for 1 minute. But it's always troubling, Brady, when you're laying massive juice and then you're making that assumption that she's going to get this fight to the ground. What if she doesn't? What if she wants to test her striking? What if cold-blooded just completely turns into somebody else out there who's fallen in love with her hands and is looking for head kicks and thinks she's going to knock out Meatball Molly to make a statement? That's what you have to worry about here. But if that's not the case, this should be Erin Blanchfield by absolute ground murder. It'll be a prison rape on the ground.
Yeah, I think if she comes in there and fight, and I expect her to fight smart, she's not going to stand with Molly McCann for 3 rounds. Yeah, I think Blanchfield does look minus 400 where she currently is. She actually opened at minus 500. She went all the way to like minus 265. I don't know what I was doing. I missed out on this line. She was like at 265, 262 for a couple days. I wish I would have max bet that. Now she's down to minus 400 at that point. This is women's MMA. We've seen crazier things. We've seen much crazier things happen. So I guess maybe as a parlay piece, but I don't know. The under 2.5 is kind of interesting. Plus 180. Molly McCann's been showing some power lately, and I think Blanchfield could definitely finish Molly McCann. I mean, Blanchfield's very dangerous on the mat. So maybe the under, maybe Blanchfield inside the distance. We'll have to see what that comes out at. But yeah, pretty big favorite here in Blanchfield. I believe she is. Yeah, she's the biggest favorite on the card by a wide margin.
Yeah, the under 2.5 at plus 180. It's underpriced by about 0.7% in comparison to the benchmark, which is actually 36.4%. But then it's overpriced by about 2.4% when you compare the under 2.5 rates of Blanchfield and McCann to the implied probability. It looks like a fairly priced line, but at plus 180, I could see McCann getting a knockout. I could see Blanchfield getting a ground and pound knockout or a submission. It might be something I look at here because that's a pretty fat number for a striker versus grappler matchup where both are very very comfortable and very dangerous in their chosen area of expertise.
Yep, that could definitely be something to look at throughout the week. Okay, we will keep moving on. We have, oh boy, Dominic Reyes going against Ryan Spann. I'll say this is a phenomenal fight, but this is like borderline 1-800 gambler for me, and we'll kind of talk about why. But we have Dominic Reyes. He's 32 years old. He's 6'4" with a 77-inch reach. Ryan Spann, 31 years old, 6'5" with a 79-inch reach. Spann 1 year younger. Spann with a 1-inch height advantage, and then Spann with a 2-inch reach advantage. Taylor tape in favor of Spann there. Dominic Reyes is 2-3 in his last 5 fights. Had a decision win against Volkan Oezdemir. Very close fight there. A knockout win against Chris Weidman, a close loss to John Jones by decision, a knockout loss to Jan Blachowicz, and then a knockout loss against Jiří Procházka. As far as Ryan Spann, 3-2 in his last 5 fights, a split decision win against Sam Alvey, a knockout loss to Johnny Walker, a knockout win against Misha Serkinov, a submission loss to Anthony Smith, and then a submission win against Ion Cutelaba. And the reason this is kind of borderline a 1-800 gambler fight for me, Weezy, is we have not seen Dominic Reyes in a while. And we have not seen Dominic Reyes look good in a while. The last time we saw him fight was 1 year and 5 months ago. That was against Jiří. Prior to that, 2 years ago against Jan Blachowicz. And then prior to that was 2 years and 7 months ago against John Jones. His last win comes almost 3 years ago against Chris Weidman. And the thing that scares me about Dominic Reyes is I'm concerned about where his head's at. Yes, he had a very close fight with John Jones. Yes, he arguably won that fight, but the last two fights, like that's all he's talking about. When he's getting these interviews, that's all he's talking about. The John Jones, I beat John Jones. I want to rematch John Jones. And he's not focusing on his opponents, Weezy. And I'm gonna, listen to the interviews this week. I mean, he needs to focus on Ryan Spann. If he does, he kicks the crap out of him. But he keeps talking about John Jones. Like, he needs to kind of move past that, right? And focus on winning a dang fight. He showed up against Jan Blachowicz. He looked like complete crap. I mean, the guy looked washed, which is weird to say because he's only 30, but Jan Blachowicz, which is beating the crap out of him, eventually knocked him out. And then he got knocked out by Yuri. I mean, no shame in those losses, but this is such a winnable fight for Dominic Reyes. If he shows up and he looks like the same Dominic Reyes that fought John Jones, that fought Chris Weidman, that fought Volkan Oezdemir, if he shows up like that, he wipes the floor with Ryan Spann. I don't think it's close. Dominic Reyes, phenomenal takedown defense. I don't see Ryan Spann taking him down. And Ryan Spann lost striking exchanges to Sam Alvey. Sam Alvey hurt Ryan Spann. Anthony Smith dropped Ryan Spann twice. I mean, the strike, it's night and day. This should be Dominic Reyes all day. It's just, where's his head at? Where's he been? And I don't know if I can entrust him at this price tag. But if he shows up, this is Dominic Reyes all day. It's not even close. I think this is such a step down. John Jones, Blachowicz, Prochazka, that, I mean, I'd be shocked if Dominic Reyes does not win this fight. So I like Reyes here, but I don't know if I can trust him. Maybe like Reyes inside the distance. I mean, if you're getting knocked down by Anthony Smith, something's wrong. I think Dominic Reyes inside the distance might be something I look at, but it's a hefty price tag, Weezy, for a guy we've not seen in a while.
Yeah, it is. And that's always, there's that missing information there, which makes it a little bit more difficult to be confident about your read. But, Spann's huge. He's an inch taller, 2 inches of height, but it's a southpaw versus orthodox matchup, which is going to be interesting here. And Reyes is the southpaw. Spann, a lot more experience, 50 more minutes in the cage, 12 more pro fights, a couple more years as a pro. Also got one more fight at the UFC level, but it's actually Reyes who's been in the cage a lot longer, over 30 more minutes in the cage. Both of these guys are savage finishers. 75% for Reyes, 85% for Spann as a pro. Reyes finishing 4 of 6 UFC wins, 5 of 7 for Spann. And these guys get finished too. And there's 6 combined UFC losses. 5 of them have been inside the distance. So, violence is a great look here, especially with Reyes coming off that layoff. He could start slow. And if you start slow against Spann, you might wind up in a guillotine there and get subbed. Spann hits very, very hard. You look at those power numbers for Ryan Spann. This guy's landed 5 knockdowns in 10 fights. He's averaging 1.5 knockdowns per 15 minutes and landing a knockdown on 3% of the significant strikes that he lands. While for Reyes, it's about 1% and 0.72 knockdowns. So both guys have power. But on the feet, it's going to be Reyes who's the better minute winner. And he's also, a moment winner as well, as he's got 4 knockdowns in 9 fights. So he's got plenty of power of his own. He's just more comfortable being in lengthy kickboxing matches because he's fast and he's got great technique, good feints, good distance management. While Ryan Spann is like a pure power puncher, he's slow. He definitely doesn't look great on the feet, but when he hits you, man, with those canned hams that he has for fists, it's going to really hurt and you're probably going to go down. Neither one of these guys grapples much, though. 5 takedowns in 10 fights for Spann, 2 takedowns in 9 fights for Reyes. But it's definitely Spann who spends a lot more time in grappling positions. But Reyes has got 80% takedown defense. He's only been controlled 10% of his 82 minutes in the cage. So it's not like, Spann is a guy that we have to worry about going out there and actually getting this fight to the ground and laying on top of Reyes. I think that that's not necessarily Spann's game. I think Spann's more of a reactive grappler. When someone tries to take him down, he could start putting that guillotine in there, and then he can use that to maybe get a takedown of his own or look for a submission attempt or, just get the guy off of him. But I really do believe that Reyes keeps this at striking range, and he probably styles on Ryan Spann and wins either a decision or gets a knockout. But I do like Dominic Reyes to win here, but man, the layoff is very concerning.
Yeah, and at the end of the day, like this is a light heavyweight fight. Ryan Spann hits like a truck. Andy has a good submission game. So the layoff, the mentality I have concerns about, and the fact that Ryan Spann is huge and hits very hard is another concern. So I don't really want to lay minus 221 on Dominic Reyes, but if he doesn't, if he loses this fight, he should be ashamed of himself. He should be ashamed of himself if he loses to Ryan Spann. The under was interesting. Listen, the under 1.5 opened at plus 160, which is wild. Currently, it's minus 110. Money's been pouring in on that. And right, we talked about why. Ryan Spann, getting finished a ton, getting dropped twice by Anthony Smith, getting dropped by Sam Alvey, getting knocked out by Johnny Walker. I think Reyes does knock him out. On the flip side, if Ryan Spann does win, he probably does clip Dominic Reyes, clip him, submit him. So I think violence is the answer, but we're going to definitely have to pay a hefty price tag for that fight doesn't go, or the under 2.5. And it looks like the under 1.5 is getting smashed as well. So I like violence. Don't know if I'll get there depending on the price. We'll find out later in the week. And I do like Reyes to get it done. And I do want to shout out Gogo Flamingo, which he is the 94th. I'll repeat that. The 94th donation of the night is one Gogo Flamingo. We are 6 donos away from 100. He's saying, how far away are we from 100? We are 6 away. A $5 dono. Another $5 dono saying kiwis are the most excellent fruit. Weezy, do you agree with that?
I do. I love kiwis, man. They're great people. They're great fruit. And they're very, very healthy for you. So yeah, I'm 100% with them there.
Some more donos here from Gogo. Appreciate you, Gogo Flamingo. Appreciate all of you hanging out, all 160 of you. If you guys have not already, be sure to smash the like button. Also subscribe here to Pub Sports Radio. Does go a long way. But Weezy, any final thoughts on this fight? Any thoughts on the line or anything?
What is the line? Where is Reyes right now?
Like minus 220.
Yeah. I mean, it's. I feel like Reyes gets the job done. I feel like he knocks out Ryan Spann. I mean, he's just clearly the better striker, minute winner, more high level kickboxer here. It's just that it's a 205-pound fight, so you don't want to be laying that because one like crazy shot that Reyes doesn't see and he could be sleeping.
Yeah, and I think somebody needs to contact YouTube support because I think Gogo Flamingo's the button.
Did his button get stuck too?
Yeah, the button is stuck. I'm sorry, Gogo. But yeah, Gogo the 95th dono. 95th.
Can we get a ticker on the bottom that says somebody please call YouTube support?
Yes, I'll make one. I'll make one in a second. But yeah, appreciate you guys. All right, we will move on to the next fight. We have Brad Riddell going against Renato Moicano. We have Brad Riddell, 31 years old, 5'7", 71-inch reach. Moicano, 33 years old, 5'11", 72-inch reach. Riddell, 2 years younger. Moicano with a 4-inch height advantage and a 1-inch reach advantage. Brad Riddell 3-2 in his last 5 fights, a decision win against Magomed Mustafayev, who, by the way, got cut apparently, probably for not fighting. So that kind of sucks. But he did win a decision against Alex Silva, won a decision against Drew Dober, got knocked out by Rafael Fiziev, and then got submitted by Jalen Turner. Moicano 3-2 in his last 5 fights, a submission win against Damir Hadzovic, a knockout loss against Rafael Fiziev, a submission win against Jai Herbert, submission win against Alexander Hernandez, and a decision win against Rafael dos Anjos. That was probably the worst beat of the year for me, Weezy. I had the under 4.5. I got it at a great line. And Rafael dos Anjos proceeds to beat the living shit out of Moicano for a couple rounds, knocks him out a couple times, and he's able to survive. I mean, shout out to his toughness there, but my goodness, it was tough to watch. It was very tough to watch. But this is a good fight. We have 2 guys that are very solid strikers. Obviously, Moicano has that black belt in his back pocket as well. If he's able to get the fight down to the mat, he's super dangerous. Lots of submissions on his record. He's actually never won a fight by knockout, which is interesting because I think his striking's pretty solid and he has sneaky power. But yeah, all of his finished wins do come by submission, so very dangerous on the mat. I think this is a very fun fight, Weezy. We got another close line on the money line as well.
Yeah, great fight. I mean, Moicano's definitely going to want to grapple here, even though he's a great striker, and Riddell's definitely going to want to strike here. It's Riddell who's a little bit younger, but Moicano, the bigger dude, 4 inches taller, another inch reach advantage here. Moicano more experienced, 9 more fights, 60 more minutes in the pro cage, about 3.5 more years as a pro fighter, also 7 more UFC level fights, 50 more minutes in the UFC cage. So we like Moicano's size, length, and we like his experience advantages here. Moicano, the much better finisher at the UFC level. He's finished 5 of his 8 UFC wins, all of them by sub, while he's got Riddell, who's never finished a UFC win. And Moicano, a slightly better finisher as a pro as well than Riddell. And both of these guys are not durable. How about that? Moicano has been finished in 4 of 5 losses, and Riddell's been finished in both of his UFC losses. So 6 of 7 UFC losses coming inside the distance here. I could be liking an under 2.5 or a fight doesn't go to decision for this fight. We got Riddell on the feet. I really think that there shouldn't be a lot of argument that Riddell is going to be the better kickboxer here at range, even though he's going to be a little bit smaller and a little bit less long. But Moicano won a striking match 3 rounds with Calvin Kattar. It's just that he fell in love with his hands there for a period, and he started going away from his grappling. Now, in these last 3 fights, Herbert, Hernandez, and Dos Anjos, we've seen him kind of go back to that grappling. But the Dos Anjos fight he took on short notice, just got to Vegas, I think a day before the fight. You know, they had to do it at a catch weight. And, you know, Dos Anjos is a very good control time grappler, very good wrestler, and a black belt in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. So Moicano not really great at going from his back here, but I don't think it's going to be Riddell trying takedowns here, and I think he'd be stupid to try to take down Renato Moicano. You don't take down a world champion Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu black belt. Moicano's really slick at getting the dude's backs. That's how he finishes fights with the Mata Leon with that rear naked choke. So Riddell, a little bit better ratio in the strength of schedule, but it's Moicano who's fighting the more experienced competition. And the wins are similar. More experienced competition for Moicano, better win-loss ratio in Riddell's wins, and the losses are impressive on both sides. So, yeah, it's a great fight. It's just that, you know, Moicano's getting his takedowns at almost a 50% clip, 12% control time for, and Riddell 62.5% takedown defense, and he's allowing 23.5% control time. So the path is there for Moicano to get these takedowns and to win minutes on the ground and to try to get to Brad Riddell's back here. If he does that, he's going to win this fight. But if he's unable to do that, Riddell should win a kickboxing match here and maybe even get a knockout.
Yeah, I think violence is kind of interesting. The under 2.5, and yeah, these lines like opened a lot earlier than I expected. Like I was up early today researching the card, but I didn't think to look at the lines. And once I did, like they all got smashed. I mean, I would have liked the under 2.5 at plus 105. It's now minus 115. Still don't hate it, but yeah, I think violence is probably where I'd look. Both guys can be finished. Both guys dangerous. Striker versus grappler. Moicano's super dangerous on the mat. If the fight hits the mat, I mean, the guy can definitely sub Riddell. And then on the flip side, you know, Moicano's chin is something that always kind of scares me as well. And Brad Riddell does have some solid power. I think violence is where I would look. Do you want to shout out some donos, some more? I know it's been crazy tonight, but shout out to Kiwi with the $10 dono saying flamingos are the most excellent birds, and I agree with that. Weezy, agree with that?
No, they're absolutely spectacular. A symphony for the eyes. Pink, you know, I mean, it's just crazy.
Very, very pink. And then we got a donut from Brandon. Brandon Babcock saying, let's ride $4.99. Appreciate you, Brandon. And we got another one from Gogo saying, I passed out on the keyboard. Will be refunded all donos in the morning. I like it. And then, by the way, that was the 98th donation of the night, 2 away from 100. This is legendary.
Unbelievable, man. 100 donations. Usually they wouldn't let us out here when we got 100 likes, and the likes were free. You know, we're getting 100 donations here today. I mean, we got the best audience in the game.
Yeah, I'm just curious what the likes are at. The likes are at only 60. We have 98 donations, but only 66 likes. I mean, you never.
It's the like.
It's the like. We got to get at least 100. 100 donations, 100 likes. That'd be legendary.
It would be. That way you would make Brady and I legends on Pub Sports Radio if you were to do that for us.
It never happened before. I'd be shocked if anything like this has ever happened. I mean, it's crazy.
It is.
All right, next we have, this should be a fun. We have Dan Hooker going against Claudio Puelles. We have Dan Hooker, 32 years old, 6 foot with a 75-inch reach. Claudio Puelles, 26 years old, 5'11", with a 72-inch reach here. Claudio Puelles, he is 6 years younger. It's going to be Dan Hooker with a 1-inch height advantage and a 3-inch reach advantage. Dan Hooker is 1-4 in his last 5 fights, a decision loss to Dustin Poirier, a knockout loss to Michael Chandler, a decision win to Nasrat Haqparast, a submission loss to Islam Makhachev, a knockout loss to Arnold Allen. Claudio Puelles, he has 5-0 in his last 5 fights, a submission win against Felipe Silva, a decision win against Marcus Mariano, a decision win against Jordan Levitt, a submission win against Chris Grutzmacher, and a submission win against Clay Guida. And I think there is some serious recency bias on this line. Like went back and watched the tape on these guys, and I seriously think, like, if this fight was a year ago, a year and a half ago, Dan Hooker would be minus 1,000. But there is a narrative that Dan Hooker is washed, and I disagree with that. I really disagree with that. Dan Hooker is only 32 years old. Did he look like complete crap in his last 2 fights? Yes, but he cut down to 145 like an idiot in his last fight against Arnold Allen. He looked like that Jack Kangaroo, the meme. And he gets knocked out by Arnold Allen, who, in my opinion, could fight for a title very, very soon. No shame in getting knocked out by Arnold. Arnold Allen looked phenomenal against Calvin Kattar. And then prior to that, he takes a short notice fight against Islam Makhachev. I mean, Weezy, is Dan Hooker a washed bum because he gets submitted by Islam Makhachev on short notice?
Makhachev might be the best fighter on the planet right now at any weight class. So no.
Is Dan Hooker a washed bum because he cuts down to 145, looks like a Jack Kangaroo, and gets finished by Arnold Allen?
I don't think so, man.
Is Dan Hooker a washed bum because he got knocked out by Michael Chandler in the first round?
That didn't look good, but I mean, Michael Chandler hits like an absolute truck. Didn't Michael Chandler almost finish Charles Oliveira, for Christ's sake?
Does Michael Chandler hit harder than Claudio Puelles?
I'm not even answering that question.
Is Dan Hooker a washed bum because he went 5 rounds back and forth with Dustin Poirier? And I had a max bet on Dustin Poirier, and I thought that fight was super close. Is he a bum for that?
No, definitely not.
I mean, look at these losses. Arnold Allen, Islam Makhachev, Michael Chandler, Dustin Poirier are his last 4 losses. Claudio Puelles, I mean, he beat Clay Guida, who's been submitted 50 times. He beat Chris Grutzmacher, who's been submitted like 5 times. He beat Jordan Levitt. And by the way, he was a dog in that fight against Jordan Levitt. He beat Marcus Mariano. Marcus Mariano's horrible. I mean, I think this is Dan Hooker all day. I don't think he's washed. I think he's fought 2 very tough opponents in Makhachev and Arnold Allen his last 2 fights. I mean, is Claudio Puelles going to take down Dan Hooker? I mean, Dan Hooker's takedown defense is phenomenal. 78% on paper. Dan Hooker has been submitted only once in the UFC. And again, that was against Islam Makhachev on short notice. I mean, the guy, Dan Hooker, has, 19 fights in the UFC. This is going to be his 20th fight, only subbed once. And he's fought very good grapplers like Gilbert Burns. He's a very good grappler. He knocked him out in the first round. Jim Miller's a very good grappler. He knocked him out in the first round. I think it's a bad match for Claudio Puelles. I think it's knee bar or bust for Claudio Puelles. Like, Puelles has 3 knee bars in the UFC, which is very impressive. Don't get me wrong, but is he going to outstrike Dan Hooker? Absolutely not. And is he going to take down Dan Hooker? I'm not convinced he is. So I like Dan Hooker, unless he really is washed. I mean, there can't be a bigger step down. There cannot be a bigger step down from Arnold Allen, Islam Makhachev, to going to Claudio Puelles, who was an underdog just a year ago, to one Jordan Levitt. So I like Dan Hooker. Have not bet him yet, but and because I think more money might come in on Puelles. I think people are thinking Dan Hooker's washed, and I don't think he's washed. I mean, he's only 32. It's not like he's 40. We'll talk about a 41-year-old and Frankie Edgar. I don't think he's washed. I just think he's fought some very tough guys. So I like Dan Hooker. I will be betting him. I'm hoping more money comes in on Puelles. But even like minus 152, like I said, if this happened a year ago, Dan Hooker would be minus 1,000. This is a horrible matchup for Puelles. So give me a Dan Hooker here. Weezy, what are your thoughts on this one?
Yeah, do you remember the Grutzmacher fight? Because, I mean, I know I had a bet on Puelles, and I think you did too. We both liked him there.
Yeah.
Dude, Grutzmacher went into his guard how many times in that fight? I remember sitting back going, God, Grutzmacher's a fucking dumbass. He's fighting so stupid. He had to keep that fight standing. and he would walk into his guard when Claudio Puelles was on his back. I couldn't believe it. Dan Hooker is not going to do that. But Puelles is still only 26 years old. It's Hooker who's going to be the bigger guy here. He's an inch taller. He's got a 3-inch reach advantage, and he switches stances, and that could be problematic against the southpaw and Puelles here. For Puelles, I mean. Hooker, much more experienced, almost 20 more fights, 13 more fights at the UFC level, 120 more minutes in the UFC cage, and 200 more minutes in the pro cage in comparison to Puelles. They're both good finishers. 60% for Puelles at the UFC level, 73% for Hooker. And they both have excellent finish rates as professionals, but Hooker, the better finisher as a pro, also a little more durable at the UFC level. But Puelles finished in his only loss, but Hooker was finished in 4 of 8 losses. So he's been finished more times, but at a lower percentage than Claudio has. Striking, Hooker. Grappling, Puelles. Strength of schedule, obviously Hooker. Hooker, much better strength of schedule here. Islam Makhachev, Michael Chandler, Arnold Allen, Dustin Poirier. These names here are just unbelievably talented, while we're seeing Clay Guida, Chris Gritzmacher, Jordan Levitt, Marcos Mariano, and even one of the wins against Felipe Silva. That fight could have been stopped about 7 different times. Puelles was getting the shit beaten out of him by Silva there and pulled off a miracle knee bar in the 3rd round. So, yeah, man, I feel like Claudio is going to be knee bar or bust here. He's got 48.61% control time for, 15% control time against. So this guy's in grappling positions about 64% of his UFC cage time. So we want to see that number be way lower for Hooker. And what do we have here? Hooker is actually out-controlling his opponents at almost a 2-to-1 ratio, and he's spending less than 30% of his UFC cage time in control time positions, and he's winning the same amount of those control, a little bit less than Puelles is. But the important thing is that Dan Hooker has only been controlled 18 minutes of the 185 minutes in the cage. So, I think that Claudio is going to have to get takedowns here, and then he's going to have to, make sure that Hooker wants to engage in the grappling, because if he doesn't, this should be a clean win for Hooker on the feet.
Yep. I mean, knee bar or bust. And SK said something that made me laugh here. He said, if Hooker gets knee barred, then yes, Hooker is a bum. I agree with that. I agree. If Hooker does get knee barred, then you could say he's a bum. But I don't think he's a bum yet.
Yeah, not yet. I mean, like you said, dude, he's only 32 years old. Do you want to talk about Frankie Edgar being washed at 40 for a bantamweight? We can have that discussion. When you're 40, that's something. When you're 45 as a heavyweight, you're washed. When you're 37, 38 as a bantamweight, you're washed. I mean, when you're a lightweight and you're 32, you're in the prime of your career.
Yeah, exactly. I think he'll be fine here. So, I gotta bet on Dan Hooker. I mean, if you like Puelles, bet him by sub. I mean, simple as that. I mean, is he going to go out there and outstrike Dan Hooker across 3 rounds? No. Is he going to go out there and win a decision? I'd be shocked if he did. If he wins it, it's by submission. I don't really see any other way. So I might even take a shot on Puelles by submission if it's the right price, because that's literally how he wins.
Yeah, that's what he does. I mean, he's just got a phenomenal transitions in his grappling, and he can go for that one technique in a number of different ways. Just like Ronda Rousey could get an arm bar in 8 different ways. It feels like Puelles can set up that knee bar with both arms on either leg. It just seems like he's an absolute wizard at that technique.
Absolutely. I do want to say we got 100 donations, which is just unbelievable. Thank you guys so much. We got Brandon Babcock saying Dirty Diggs is a big fan of Uncle Weezy. Who's Dirty Diggs?
I don't know who that is, actually. Dirty Diggs. I'm gonna have to look that one up on the. We could check that out on the Google.
I mean, I looked it up, and all that came up was Dirty Dogs.
Huh. I don't know who that is. Yeah, I don't know who Dirty Diggs is. They're gonna have to fill us in.
Oh yeah, fill us in there. Gogo Flamingo saying Hooker equals money. Eugene is managing him now, and he has picked a good bounce back fight. I mean, he's going from Arnold Allen, Islam Makhachev, Nasrat Hakparas, Michael Chandler, Dustin. Yeah, it's one of his easiest matchups in a very long time. And then one more, we got Kiwi saying Dan is my guy, but I really worried about him losing a leg, and that could happen. I mean, if the fight does hit the mat, he very well could get submitted, but Poirier has to get it there first.
Yeah.
All right.
Those knee bar and heel hook guys are terrifying guys to fight, but if you don't get caught in that technique, you're going to do well.
And then Andy saying, I'm afraid Hooker's chin has left the chat, last seen in 2019. Well, luckily, you won't have to worry about that here against Claudio Puelles. He's not knocking out. He's mostly kicks. He's mostly kicks.
That's true. Absolutely. Yes.
Alrighty. All right. We will move on to the next fight. We have the 41-year-old Frankie Edgar going against Chris Gutiérrez. Edgar is 41, 5'6" with a 68-inch reach. Gutiérrez, 31 years old, 5'9" with a 67-inch reach. Gutiérrez, 10 years younger, 3-inch height advantage, and Edgar's going to have a 1-inch reach advantage. Edgar is 1-4 in his last 5 fights. Decision loss to Max Holloway, knockout loss against Zhang, decision win against Pedro Munoz, a knockout loss to Corey Sandhagen, and a knockout loss against Marlon Vera. Chris Gutiérrez is 4-0 and 1 draw in his last 5 fights. Knockout win against Vince Morales by leg kicks, a draw against Cody Durden, decision win against Andre Yol, split decision against that bum Felipe Colorish, and a knockout win against Denat Bakary. And I look at this fight, and I think it's such a winnable fight for Frankie Edgar, but there's one massive glaring thing that I'm looking at right now. It's the age. 41 years old for Frankie Edgar, but kind of like the last fight. I mean, Edgar, going from Marlon Vera, which, by the way, he was up 2-0 against Marlon Vera going to that 3rd round, and then Marlon Vera kicks him in the face, becomes a meme. He got knocked out by Corey Sandhagen, beat Pedro Munoz across 5 rounds, got knocked out against the Korean Zombie, lost a decision to Max Hall. I mean, this is a massive step down for Frankie Edgar. This is one of Frankie Edgar's easier matchups in years. It's been a long time since he's kind of taken a big step down in competition. And he's going against Chris Gutiérrez, who I like Chris Gutiérrez. I think his striking is very good. I had a really big bet on Chris Gutiérrez against Felipe Colorish. He kind of scared me. I didn't agree with it being a split decision. I thought he clearly won 2 out of the 3 of those rounds. But what did kind of concern me was Felipe Colorish was able to take him down a couple times. And when he did get on top, he was able to control him a little bit. And I kind of looked through a lot of Gutierrez's fights, and I don't know if his takedown defense is that great. We saw Felipe Colorish taking him down a couple times, controlling him. We saw Geraldo de Freitas take him down a couple times, control him. We saw Cody Durden 10-8 him in the 1st round, controlling him for the entire round there. We didn't see Vince Morales go for takedowns because he's an idiot, but we did see Hani Barcelos take him down twice and submit him. We saw Denat Bakary take him down. I don't think Chris Gutierrez has much off his back. I think his takedown defense is good, but his get-up game, I just don't like what I see there. So, Frankie Edgar, very good wrestler. I mean, the guy's attempted 232 takedowns in the UFC. He had success wrestling against Marlon Vera. If he comes in here with the right game plan, he can win it. But, I have serious concerns about the durability of Frankie Edgar, and I have serious concerns about the age, but I'm pretty sure this is his last fight, and they're giving him stylistically a very winnable fight, but it's just hard to trust a 41-year-old. But this is a massive step down for Frankie Edgar, and this is a massive step up. I mean, 2 fights ago, Chris Gutierrez was fighting Felipe Colorish, the same Felipe Colorish who got destroyed by Chase Hooper. I mean, think about that. This is a big step up for Gutierrez, a big step down in Frankie Edgar. If Frankie Edgar was not 41 years old, I'd auto bet him. And honestly, I'm still kind of tempted at this line as well. I think Frank Edgar is very live to win the fight as long as he fights smart, and I can kind of expect him to. I mean, the guy's shot 232 takedowns. Weezy, we got a 41-year-old bantamweight. Should be a very interesting one here. I'm curious to see how it plays out.
You got to have brass balls to bet on a 41-year-old bantamweight who's been finished in his last 3 losses. I mean, just that stat, a 41-year-old who's been finishing his last 3 losses. How often are they going to win that next fight? But everything that you said about the stylistic components of this matchup are true. Gutierrez has been taken down 9 times in 8 fights, but he's been controlled 18.76% of his UFC cage time. And Edgar's gotten 73 takedowns in the UFC. He's averaging 2.3 per 15 minutes, and he's controlling his opponents 22% of the time, and he's allowing only 3.45% control time. So he's winning like 85% of the control time positions. And, the fact that he's been taken down 22 times, but only controlled for less than 4% of his UFC cage time tells you how excellent of a minute winner Frankie Edgar is when he's mixing in the wrestling. And that's something that you can absolutely do against Chris Gutiérrez. Gutiérrez is an excellent kickboxer, though. A significant strike differential at this level of 2.08 is phenomenal. 64% striking defense is phenomenal. 0.59 knockdowns per 15 minutes is a good number for a bantamweight. But Edgar, fighting at a championship level up 2 weight classes for most of his career, is also got a positive 1 significant strike differential and 66% striking defense. He's been knocked down a lot. He's been knocked down, I would say, maybe 9 times, but that's, in 29 fights. So it's really hard, dude. Obviously, Edgar's more experienced. Obviously, Edgar's the better wrestler. Obviously, Edgar's faced a way better brand of competition. And obviously, Gutiérrez is 10 years younger. He's taller. He's probably longer. And he's the more powerful, better minute winner in the striking. So it's a very interesting matchup. But I think if I've fallen into that trap, a couple of these losses, Marlon Vera bet Edgar by decision at plus 500. Didn't work out. Against Sandhagen, I think I bet Frankie Edgar by decision at plus 400 or plus 450. Didn't work out, But do we ride one more time? Frankie Edgar by decision, control time in 2 out of 3 rounds, avoids the big shot, doesn't get the bottom half of either leg kicked off. Yeah, it could happen. Frankie Edgar's a stud. But, God, man, chasing 41-year-old bantamweights and trying to get them to get that one last win, I don't think is a good long-term strategy.
You're right. Let me ask you this. Is Frankie Edgar a bum because he got knocked out by Marlon Vera?
No.
Is Frankie Edgar a bum because he got knocked out by Corey Sandhagen?
Certainly not.
Is he a bum because he got knocked out by the Korean Zombie?
Up a weight class of 145? Probably not.
And is he a bum because he got decisioned by Max Holloway?
Nope. Max Holloway doesn't really finish anyone, but, he's the best boxer in the UFC, according to Max Holloway.
Yeah, I might ride one more time. The line, it's just stylistically such a winnable matchup. But, yeah, there's obviously Frank Edgar's 41. He's washed. But, this price tag, though. Did Chris Gutierrez open at minus 130? That seems about right to me because Edgar has a legit path to victory. Claudio, what's his face? Felipe Caloris is taking this guy down and controlling him. Right? And then now he's minus 220. He's minus 220. Edgar opened up plus 110, and he's now plus 185. Curious to see where the line goes. And I don't mind the over because Edgar's not finishing anybody. And I feel like Edgar, yes, his durability looks bad, but it looks bad against Marlon Vera, Corey Sandhagen, Korean Zombie, and guys like that. So I think the over is kind of interesting. It's like minus 155, minus 150. And then I might take a shot on Edgar money line.
Yeah, according to my prop template, at minus 155 for the over 2.5, overpriced by about 4% when you compare it to the benchmark for the division. But we've got a massive sample size of 37 UFC fights. When you compare the over 2.5 rates of Edgar and Gutiérrez combined, they're going over that rate 73% of the time, over 2.5 combined. And that line is sitting only at 60%. So even though it's juiced up to minus 155, these guys 12.2% better than what the implied probability of the line is when you see how they go over 2.5, and they go over 2.5 at a 16% rate higher than the division does. So that is a pretty solid looking bet according to my prop template.
Yeah, but then Justin's saying, can you scream it one more time? Is Frankie Edgar a bum? I love it.
That's great stuff. But you're right about all that stuff, man. The recency bias is how we get underpriced lines. When you got a guy that's coming off a horrible loss, or you got a guy like Chase Hooper in his last fight coming off a super impressive win over Caloris, and then he's just overpriced. And, I think we got a case of that with Petrosky coming off a really impressive first-round Darce choke win over Nick Maximov when he was a big underdog. And now the market is overreacting, and they're putting him at -200 against a guy who's probably a better grappler than him. And Petrosky, nobody trusts Petrosky's striking. So that line is just off.
Yeah, I mean, there's a couple money lines that really stick out. I'm not really a money line guy. I pick and choose them, but a couple money lines sticking out this week. Not a ton of violence props, which I love my violence, but none of that really sticking out. I'm liking some overs actually, so it's kind of an interesting card from a betting perspective. But from a fan perspective, like we've been talking about, this card is freaking phenomenal.
Yeah, it really is. I mean, we haven't even talked about Poirier, Chandler, Esparza, Zhang, or Adesanya Pereira yet.
Yes, so we're about to get to those. Before we do so, guys, we're going to take a quick commercial break. We'll be back in about 60 seconds. Is Ramona Pasquale a bum? Yeah. Oh yeah. Oh yeah. And we are back. Welcome back to Pub Sports Radio. We are sitting at 92 likes, 8 likes away from 100. If we can get there by the end of the show, that'd be awesome. But we're about to get into the best 3 fights of the card. Just 3 bangers. We have Esparza, Zhang Weili. We have Poirier, Chandler, which, oh my God, I cannot wait for that fight. And then, of course, we got the main event, Adesanya, Pereira to talk about. So 3 really good fights to close the show. We're looking forward to hearing your thoughts on all of these. Let us start with Dustin Poirier going against Michael Chandler. Poirier is 33 years old, 5'9" with a 72-inch reach. Chandler, 36 years old, 5'8" with a 71-inch reach. Poirier, 3 years younger. Poirier with a 1-inch height advantage. Poirier with a 1-inch reach advantage. Dustin Poirier is 3-2 in his last 5 fights. Submission loss to Khabib, a decision loss or decision win against Dan Hooker, a knockout win against Conor McGregor, a knockout win against Conor McGregor, and then a submission loss to Charles Oliveira. Michael Chandler, 3-2 in his last 5 fights, made his debut against Dan Hooker, won that fight by knockout, lost to Charles Oliveira by knockout, lost a decision against Justin Gaethje, and then a knockout win against Tony Ferguson. So this fight's phenomenal. I think this is honestly like one of my favorite fights of the year. I think these guys are just going to stand and bang until one man falls. I don't trust the durability of Michael Chandler. Michael Chandler, he's now 36 years old. The guy's been dropped so many times in the UFC. I'm shocked that Justin Gaethje did not finish him. I think if Justin Gaethje had a good gas tank, he would have finished him. But he got knocked down, like once or twice in that fight? It says once, but could have been twice. And then Ferguson hurt him in the first round as well. Charles Oliveira dropped him twice. And then he's getting knocked out outside the UFC as well. I just don't trust the chin of Michael Chandler. And Dustin Poirier, I mean, the guy's been showing power. Poirier knocked down Charles Oliveira. He went out there and knocked out Conor McGregor, who that was the first time he'd ever been knocked out in that first Conor fight. And then he goes out there and knocks him out again. He has a ton of power. He has great striking. And again, I just don't know if I trust the durability of Michael Chandler. Is Michael Chandler going to wrestle? I don't think so. I really don't think so. That's not been Michael Chandler's game in the UFC. Only attempted 7 takedowns in 4 fights, only getting 2. And if he does try to take down Dustin Poirier, I don't really see him having success. I actually think it's going to be a mistake for Chandler to try to take down Poirier because I don't think Chandler has the best gas tank. So I do like Poirier here. But Poirier is a very, very big favorite. We'll talk about the line in a little bit, but I kind of lean Poirier by knockout. I just trust his power. I trust his durability, whereas I don't trust the durability of Michael Chandler now at 36 years old. But what I do know is this is going to be an absolute banger, and I do think they're going to stand and bang until one man falls. And I kind of see this fight playing out like the Justin Gaethje fight. So, Weezy, phenomenal fight. How do you feel about this one?
Yeah, I mean, you like the measurables advantages for Poirier. He's 3 years younger, an inch taller, got an inch of reach, and he's a southpaw versus the orthodox in Chandler. And he's got 6 more pro fights, about almost 50 more minutes in the pro cage, and a couple more months as a pro fighter, but 23 more fights at the UFC level, and about 250 more minutes in the UFC cage. But Chandler obviously fighting at a high level in Bellator outside of the UFC. Both guys, great finishers. 78% finish rate as a pro for Chandler, 75 for Poirier. Both guys get finished. As Poirier's been finished in 72% of his losses, 5 of 7, and he's been finished in 5 of his 6 UFC losses, while Chandler's been finished in 1 of 2 UFC losses and in 4 of 7 pro losses. The striking metrics at the UFC level favor Poirier with about a 1.4 significant strike differential, a little bit better striking accuracy. Both guys have good power numbers, but Chandler's power numbers are have the edge here. And, in defense, it's Poirier 54% striking defense, 41% striking defense for Michael Chandler. That's very troubling. Poirier doing a good job of out-controlling his opponents in control time positions. Same thing with Chandler, but Chandler's only faced 2 takedown attempts in 4 fights, while Poirier's faced 62 takedown attempts in 27 fights. The strength of schedule, obviously very good for both guys. The wins and the overall numbers, they do favor Chandler, but in a much smaller sample size. So obviously, Poirier, Chandler have both fought studs. They've both beaten studs. They've both lost to studs. So, it's just close. I mean, I don't think Chandler is going to wrestle much here. I mean, Poirier only has 63% takedown defense. That's not great. But he can get takedowns of his own. And I just think he's going to be a lot more comfortable here on the feet. Chandler will probably be swinging from the fences, and Poirier will probably be picking him apart, winning the minutes. So, yeah, I mean, I think Poirier wins this fight. I still haven't taped it. It's going to be so much fun to tape. But, I got to the lower half of the card today. So I can't wait for this one. This is going to be so much fun. I definitely would lean violence here. And according to my prop template, the under 2.5 at minus 205 is definitely juiced to the tits. 20.5% overpriced when you compare it to the benchmark of 47% for under 2.5 at 155 pounds. So, I'm not paying minus 205 here, and getting plus 165 on the over would probably take years off your life. So it's going to be, I'm going to be staying away from this one in the time props, but I do like Poirier to win.
Yeah, it opened up minus 220 for the under. It went to minus 275 immediately, and then went to minus 262, back to minus 205. It looks like money is coming on these overs, so I hope money keeps coming in on the overs. I might take a shot on the violence later in the week. They have the over 1.5 minus 130. The under 1.5 is plus 100. Propaholic hit me up saying he doesn't mind that over, and I mean, you're going to lose a couple of years off your life, but I guess the over is solid. But I do think somebody gets finished in this fight, just the way it plays out. Dustin Poirier opened at minus 200. He was minus 150 on August 3rd, and then now he's back to minus 220. Michael Chandler opened up plus 170, went to plus 130 August 3rd, and then he's back to plus 185. So, yeah, I like Poirier here. I don't love the price tag, and don't love the price tag on the violence. But like I said, I hope more money keeps coming on these overs, and then I'll take a look later in the week.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, you don't have to gamble on this fight because it's going to be such a banger anyway. You're going to enjoy it whether or not you have money on it, but it's going to be such a good fight. And we got 2 title fights to talk about still here.
2 title fights to talk about indeed. And we're 2 likes away from 100. So almost there, Weezy.
Unbelievable. 100 likes and 100 donations. This is definitely a record-setting Stack Diggers.
Just a goat stream. Just a goat stream.
Goat stream is right. Yeah.
And goat is well fitting, by the way, for our Tajik Bey.
Yes. It's in more ways than one. That's for sure.
Yes, sir. All right. This title fight, though. Carla Esparza, Zhang Weili. This should be something. I mean, this can be a good fight. We have Esparza, 35 years old, 5'1", 63-inch reach. Zhang Weili, 33 years old, 5'4", with a 63-inch reach. Zhang Weili, 2 years younger. Zhang Weili, 3-inch height advantage, and then same reach there. Carla Esparza, 5-0 in her last 5 fights. Decision win against Grasso. Decision win against Watterson. Decision win against Rodriguez. Knockout win against Yan Xiaonan. Decision win against Nama Yunus. As far as Zhang Weili, she is 3-2 in her last 5 fights. Knockout win against Jessica Andrade. A decision win against Joanna. A knockout loss against Rose. A decision loss to Rose, and then a knockout win against Joanna. Her last time out, spinning back fist. Man, I think this is a very rough matchup for Esparza. We'll talk about the line in a little bit. Like Zhang Weili is a massive favorite, and I think a lot of that has to do with Esparza just pissing everybody off in her last fight. Like that fight pissed a lot of people off. I was out with some friends watching that fight, and we were just like, "What?" Like that was the longest fight ever. That was the longest 25-minute fight ever, where just nothing happened in that fight. So I think people are very down on Esparza, but I think she can, win some minutes here. I think she can land some takedowns here, but the problem is I just don't see her doing that for 5 rounds. Zhang Weili, very, very strong. Only a 60% takedown defense. She has stuffed, I think, 3 out of 5 takedowns there, but I think she's going to be able to stuff the majority of the takedowns in this fight. She's very active off her back, dangerous off her back as well. And it's just hard to imagine Esparza going out there and out wrestling Zhang Weili and doing that for 25 minutes. I kind of see it playing out a little bit like the Joanna Esparza fight, where Joanna was able to stuff those takedowns, and on the feet, just Esparza had nothing. And it's kind of crazy. Esparza has 25 fights, 14 UFC fights, and her striking just, I mean, it's still not there. It's especially to the level of Zhang Weili. Like on the feet, I think it's Zhang Weili by a mile. So Esparza is going to have to shoot takedowns, shoot them right away, and shoot a ton of takedowns to win this fight. I think it's a really bad matchup for Carla Esparza. I think Zhang Weili really hurts Esparza and probably even knocks her out. I think it's going to be a complete beatdown on the feet. So I like Zhang Weili, huge favorite, but I don't mind her inside the distance. I think Zhang Weili can finish Esparza. Striker versus grappler. I think Zhang Weili will be able to keep it on the feet, and then just on the feet, like it's night and day, especially with how Zhang Weili's been looking. Especially in that Joanna fight. She looked like an absolute killer, and she's only getting better as well. So Zhang Weili to kick the shit out of Carla Esparza is how I'm going, Weezy.
Yeah, I mean, it's hard to come up with any other prediction after these ladies' last 2 fights. When you talk about Rose versus Carla and then Weili versus Joanna, you saw 2 fighters at 2 different trajectories in their professional careers. It looks like Weili's coming for that belt, and it doesn't look like there's going to be much Carla can do to stop her. I saw a video on Twitter of Weili picking up Francis Ngannou over her shoulder. Did you see that?
I did.
I mean, it's crazy, dude. I mean, that guy's weighing 200. He walks around at 285. What's she picking him up for? If Carla isn't able to get takedowns and tons of control time, there's no way she wins this fight. There's no way she wins the striking exchanges. Weili is just too powerful. What we can love about Carla Esparza is the fact that she is a wrestler who never fell in love with her hands, which is my favorite kind of wrestler. Do what you're good at. Don't pretend you're a striker all of a sudden. And she's not going to do that here. She's going to be staying out of range or setting up a big overhand right to get into wrestling range. If it doesn't work, she's going to lose the fight. But if she can get takedowns in 3 or 4 out of 5 rounds and ride out, get some control time, the path it could potentially be there. And I think that there's a ton of recency bias on this line. I don't get in the habit of laying minus 350 on women's MMA favorites ever, especially seeing as there could be an injury at any time in any fight now. And wouldn't it be convenient if this was the time that Weili went in with an undisclosed injury and looked like absolute dog shit? So tread lightly when you're laying this kind of juice on women's MMA. I know all the recency bias says that Weili Zhang should just absolutely destroy Carla Esparza, and that's how I see the fight taking place as well. But I don't think I'm going to be getting invested in this fight, Brady.
I mean, how could you? I mean, minus 360 for Zhang Weili. I saw this line, honestly. I was expecting like I was expecting like minus 150.
No.
They are disrespecting, and that's what it opened up at, minus 150. Like they are disrespecting Carla Esparza.
They are disrespecting her. She's got, 14 UFC fights. She's been a champion. She is the champion. But look, I mean, Weili just looks right now as good as anybody's ever looked. And, she looks so dangerous right now. That performance against Joanna was a crazy eye-opener. The fact that she almost finished her in the first and then just absolutely flatlined her in the second. I mean, it was really an impressive fight. So, I got to believe that Weili gets it done, but this line is entirely too wide.
Yeah, and we got to worry about these undisclosed injuries going around as well. Just another thing to worry about laying price like this. And Carla does have a path to victory. I mean, we saw Rose take down Zhang Weili pretty easily and controller. But yeah, minus 360. No, thank you. I do think she absolutely destroys Esparza, though. I think she hurts her super bad. I think it's a rough matchup, but you can't lay minus 360. What I will be taking a look at is potentially like the knockout prop or like the under. The under 4.5 is plus money on FanDuel, plus 106, and it's like minus 115 on Bet Online. So I might take a look at the under. Any idea how many times 115-pound fights finish? 5 rounds?
Yeah, 5-round fights. They finish inside the distance 47% of the time. So, you should be getting just a little bit of plus money, maybe plus 105 would be like the benchmark line to get a very fairly priced under in 115-pound strawweight fight that's 5 rounds. So at plus 105, as crazy good as Weili has looked, I think that she probably can finish this fight.
Yeah, I think so as well. All right, main event time. We have Israel Adesanya going against Alex Pereira. I did do a breakdown of this fight on my channel, DFS by the Numbers, for about 10 minutes, 11 minutes. It's an interesting matchup. I've been kind of going back and forth on my prediction as well. I think it's a very intriguing fight to break down, and I'm curious to your thoughts on it, Weezy. We have Adesanya, 33 years old, 6'4" with an 80-inch reach. Alex Pereira, 35 years old, 6'4" with an 80-inch reach. Same height, same reach, which is interesting because both guys typically are much bigger than their opponents here. Same size in this fight. Adesanya, 2 years younger. Adesanya's 4-1 in his last 5 fights, knocked out Paulo Costa, decision loss to Jan Blachowicz, a decision win against Marvin Vettori, a decision win against Robert Whittaker, and then a decision win against Jared Cannonier. Alex Pereira, 5-0 in his last 5 fights, makes his debut against Andreas Michailidis, won by knockout, wins a decision against Bruno Silva, and then wins by knockout against Sean Strickland. It's kind of crazy that Alex Pereira, only 3 fights in the UFC, already fighting for a title after, Sean Strickland, good win. Bruno Silva, decent win. Michailidis, kind of an easy win there, but it's crazy to see him fighting for a title just 3 fights into the UFC. And this is an interesting matchup. I'm sure that the narrative all week is going to be Alex Pereira is 2-0 against Israel Adesanya in kickboxing. In the first fight, Pereira won a decision, super close. Honestly, could have went Adesanya's way. The second fight, Adesanya was getting the better of him, and then Pereira lands a big shot and knocked out Adesanya. The first person to ever knock out Adesanya ever, whether it's MMA or kickboxing, as far as I'm concerned. I think that was the first time Adesanya had ever been knocked out. So it's an interesting matchup because on the feed, I think the minute winner is going to be Adesanya. And DraftKings and BetRivers got the lines out for this fight. And I think it's really telling what they did. They have the decision only for Adesanya at like minus 400, something crazy like that. And then they have the finish only for Pereira at like minus 165. So basically they're saying if this fight does go to decision, there's a really good chance Adesanya wins. And I completely agree with that. I think he's going to be the minute winner. I think defensively, he is much better. He's very risk adverse. He doesn't take a lot of risks. He doesn't get hit. He doesn't get hit clean. Whereas Alex Pereira, he doesn't care if he gets hit. I don't really like his strike and defense, but his chin is very solid. It has held up, but Adesanya's strike and defense is much better. And then they're saying if there's a finish in this fight, that it is more likely that it's from Pereira, and I completely agree with that. I think Pereira's knockout power is scary. He's knocked out Adesanya before. So I don't know. I've been kind of going back and forth. I think I lean the Adesanya side because he has more UFC fights. He has more MMA fights. He has fought the much better competition by a mile. I think he will be the minute winner. I like how he's been fighting lately. I mean, I went back and watched their fight in kickboxing, and Adesanya was being like way too aggressive in that fight. Like we don't see Adesanya fighting like that nowadays. In the Cannonier fight, he did a really good job at not getting hit clean by a very hard-hitting Cannonier. And I kind of feel like he does that here. I kind of think he sticks to the outside, avoids getting into exchanges with Pereira, makes the fight kind of boring, if you will. I mean, people have been calling Adesanya boring, but a lot of times these boring fighters go out there and they win. People always called Kamaru Usman boring. The guy was on a massive win streak. I hit up my brother today. I was like, who do you got, Adesanya or Pereira? And he's like, Pereira. And then they said Adesanya is boring. And I'm like, dude, boring is good sometimes. Boring wins fights. And that's just what he does. 24 fights, 23-1. The one loss comes up at light heavyweight against Jan Blachowicz. I like Adesanya here, but Alex Pereira, honestly, he scares the living shit. This guy is very dangerous. He's huge, hits like a truck. So that's kind of the one thing that's scaring me away. But I like Adesanya here ever so slightly, and I think there's some interesting ways to bet this fight. We'll kind of talk about the lines in a little bit, Weezy, but I'm curious to your thoughts on this one. It's a fight that I'm kind of struggling on in terms of making a pick, but I do lean towards Adesanya ever so slightly.
Yeah, I kind of feel like I have to lean towards Adesanya, and I have to do that because of some more narrative things more than based on what I'm seeing in the cage stylistically. And that's that, Israel Adesanya has 24, mixed martial arts fights, while Pereira has 7. Adesanya's fought at the UFC level 13 times. For Pereira, it's 3 times. The level of competition, I mean, come on. It's not really even close. In terms, Sean Strickland, Bruno Silva, Andreas Mihalidis, and then you see like nothing but title fights for Israel Adesanya here. They gave Pereira 3 guys who would not be able to wrestle him at all, and now he's got the 4th one. That's what they wanted, this so bad. I feel like Israel's cleaned out the division. He couldn't go up and get the 205-pound belt, and he's just been easily winning fights here. They had to get him an opponent that could maybe make somebody give a shit about one of his fights, because frankly, he has been boring. Now, you and I always say, Brady, we don't care if someone's boring. I want to boringly cash tickets.
I know, right?
That's the best way, is to just boring. Your guy goes out there and just does it in 15 seconds. You don't sweat it at all, and that's what sometimes these guys like Adesanya do. They go out there. It may not be fun to watch, but it's fun to watch your bank account go up. It's fun to watch your betting account go up because these guys are cashing tickets. Pereira needs to land a big shot. He needs to land a big left hook. And if he doesn't, there's no path to victory for him. He's not going to wrestle. And it's not like anyone has successfully really wrestled Israel Adesanya anyway. So, yeah, he's got the puncher's chance. And I don't bet on punchers' chances. I just don't. And especially when they're less experienced, especially when they faced much worse level of competition. And they handed them just 3 fights. Mihalidis 1 round of cardio. Bruno Silva never submitted anybody in his life. And Sean Strickland with a 63 IQ who will go out there and box a guy when he's the 10 times better grappler. Izzy's not going to make this easy for Alex. And Alex needs it to be made easy for him because he's not a complete mixed martial artist, in my opinion.
Yep, absolutely. I don't think we see any takedowns in this fight from Adesanya or Pereira. I'd be shocked if either guy. It just wouldn't make any sense to me. But yeah, I mean, I like Adesanya. He's like minus 183, opened up minus 200. Pereira opened up plus 170, currently plus 158. Kind of the ways I'm looking at playing it is I like the 4-5 decision for Adesanya. The 4-5 decision on FanDuel I saw was at like minus 120. DraftKings had the round 5 or decision at minus 110. I think that's a solid way to play it. I don't think Adesanya is going to put himself into a lot of danger here. I think he is going to make this a quote unquote boring fight. I mean, he has to. I mean, he's not going to stand in the middle and bang with Alex Pereira. He's going to get knocked out. I think he's going to stay to the outside, stay defensively sound, avoid risks, and probably take away decision. Initially I was kind of leaning violence, but after looking into it a little bit more, I kind of lean Adesanya decision. If there is a finish in this fight, I think it does come from Pereira. The under 4.5 rounds was like plus 140 for a long time. I was thinking about it, didn't pull the trigger. It's now plus 105, so I'm not betting that. So I guess if anything, it's the Adesanya 4-5 decision minus 120, getting a little bit better of a price there. Or if you like Pereira, I mean, there's one path to victory in my opinion. It's by knockout, which is plus 280 on FanDuel Sportsbook. I don't know if I have a bet on this fight. I think I might just sit back and watch this one because I think Adesanya should win. But like I said, Alex Pereira's power is terrifying, and it really only takes one, and he has 25 minutes to do it, and he's done it before.
Yeah, this is a great main event, but it might be a boring one because if Israel has his way, he's just going to kind of be picking him apart from range, winning minutes, not knocking him out, and frustrating Alex Pereira. And we might see him get his first takedown of his UFC career here. This would be the spot for him to do it. But yeah, Israel Adesanya 0 takedowns in 13 UFC fights in 236 minutes in the cage. So if you're on the Adesanya side because you think he's going to put on a singlet all of a sudden, don't have that opinion, because that's not what Israel is going to do. He's just going to have to win the minutes standing, and he's a master at doing that.
Yeah, I would laugh if Adesanya went for some takedowns here. Maybe it does, but that'd be funny. But yep, should be a fun fight. Weezy, we did it. 14 fights. It's been a phenomenal show. Probably our best show yet. 102 donations. We hit the 100 like mark. We're at 108.
Yes.
Just probably the greatest stream of all time, and a very good card to do it on. So appreciate all you hanging out, Weezy. Let the people know where they can find you, what you have going on throughout the rest of the week.
I want to know where I can find this chat every week. This was amazing. And thank each and every one of you for watching, donating, hitting that thumbs up button. We appreciate all you. Stat Diggers wouldn't be the same without you, and Pub Sports Radio wouldn't be the same without Stat Diggers. So we love doing this show. Thank you guys all for showing up. Tomorrow, you can find me on the MMA Engine YouTube channel right alongside Brady for Probability. We're going to go through all 14 of these fights and give you a data-driven look at the time props on this card so we can find some inefficiently priced lines and make some money there. And then Tuesday night, you can find me on my YouTube channel, Uncle Weezy, 10 o'clock Central Time. We're going to break down all 14 of these fights, finish with Uncle Weezy's ass shaving of the week. And you can find me also right here on Pub Sports Radio on Wednesday for the DFS show and on Saturday for the watch along. Hey, let's stack cash tickets like flapjacks for UFC 281. We finally got a great card, 14 fights, some spots sticking out. I'm looking to cash big. Do it big this week.
Let's do it. All right.
Free Daz files. Free Daz files.
Yeah, I got to figure out how to get them unblocked on here. I tried to do it, but I didn't see them on the block list. So we need to maybe hit up YouTube support on that one.
Dude, somebody's got to call YouTube support, Brady.
Yeah, I mean, I tried, but I literally did not see him. So I'll be on the phone with YouTube support probably after the show, maybe figure it out. But yeah, guys, thank you so much for hanging out. Thank you for the donations, all of you guys, Tajik Bey, all you guys. Kind of want to go through them again. We got Gogo Flamingo donated. We got Brandon Babcock donated. We got Kiwi with some donations. Low T City Ortega donated. Got some new members during the stream. I mean, you guys killed it. So we do appreciate you guys so much for everything. Mo in the chat, Mo Cott, with a dono early in the stream as well. Do appreciate all you guys. So leave a like on your way out, subscribe. You can check me out on Twitter, DFS_numbers, Instagram, DFS by the numbers. I'm starting to do a ton more content on Instagram. You can subscribe to me on YouTube, DFS by the numbers, starting to do a lot more, these shorts. I guess the YouTube shorts are the next big thing. So doing a lot of those. And I'm sure I'm going to be doing a lot of content for UFC 281. So check me out there. Leave a like, subscribe, all the good stuff. And best of luck for UFC 281. Let us make some money this week.